Okay, am I live? Oh, I should probably turn on the TV too. Give me a sec. If I could remember where I put the controller, that would help too. I don't want to do Prime Video. I do not want to get hit with a copyright content thing. No, go back to YouTube. That's what I was watching. Why would you change? Why would you listen to the button I pressed? You should know that I didn't mean to press it. Okay, we're live over there. We're live right here. Cool. Okay, I think we're good. I just gotta double check everything now to make sure it's actually live. Like restream, am I showing on stuff? It's showing that I'm like, there we go. Okay, so restream is live. How's YouTube going? YouTube is live. It seems like everything's good. Twitch, are we live? We're live on Twitch. It does say Dead Space Remaster on Twitch. It says Dead Space Remaster on YouTube. It says Dead Space. Okay, we're live on the big platforms. So I think we're good here. Now it's about going live on TikTok. So let's get that going. Oh, I should have probably grabbed my tablet before I started to. I'm a hot mess today. I am an absolute hot mess today. Okay, let's get started on okay. All right. Oh, that's not the right Dead Space file though. That's not the right Dead Space file. Load. Hold on. Back to main menu. Accept. Okay, I'm going live on TikTok. Dead Space. Change my cover picture to Dead Space. It will not work. Just do an auto screenshot then. We're gonna go to gaming. We're gonna do Dead Space. Go live. Okay, we're live on TikTok as well. Hello everybody, welcome. I am so sorry that I am such a hot mess right now. I had a spill right as I was getting ready to go live. I poured my drink and then I went to go reach over and I moved my hand to avoid the can, but I forgot I had already put it into a cup. Oh, no. I moved my hand to avoid the cup, but I forgot I hadn't poured it yet, and then I hit the can and spilt it all over my keyboard and mouse. So the keyboard seems to be okay, I hope, but it was literally right as I was going live. So I apologize that I'm a hot mess right now, but we're live, and that's what matters. Anxious Dude, hello, I am feeling your name right now. So for everybody hanging out, we are playing some Dead Space today. We're going to continue with that. We've been playing that since last week, and I'm not on the couch. I didn't want to set up all the cameras and stuff. Let me just grab something real quick. Mason Shane, thank you so much for the follow. I really appreciate that. I just want to make sure everything's actually looking the way it should and working the way it should. The stream should be almost flawless today. I wouldn't say flawless, but almost flawless, because I am using my console, so I don't have to worry about the stupid pressure on my computer, because I'm out on both platforms right now. And so that's kind of the... Okay, how do I... Okay, we're in the main menu, right? But how do I, like... Okay. Load game. Oh, crud. Okay. So that was... When did I play last? I don't remember the last time I streamed this. Okay, that was at 3. Crud. I don't know which one it was. What happens if I, like... It's just going into the game. I don't want it to go into the game. Let me just quit the game. Let me just quit the game. Okay, Dead Space. We're going back into the game. We've completely quit. Hopefully it'll let me in and start a fresh batch. But yes, we are playing Dead Space, and we are going to be continuing where we were. For people on YouTube and Twitch, you're not seeing anything except for my face right now. For TikTok folks, you're already seeing the gameplay. I haven't set up the Steam Deck or Stream Deck to work with TikTok yet, which I probably should. But I just haven't gotten around to it. Last night was a really stupidly late night for me at work. So I was like dead today. Dead to the world. I'm still dead to the world right now, but I'm live because I haven't been the most consistent when it comes to streaming, so I am doing my best to stick with it when I can. Again, I can't promise that I'm always going to be on time, but I'm doing my best. Okay, TikTok seems to be good, so I think we're okay. YouTube, I'm pretty sure, is live and good. It's just a bit quiet right now. It might be quiet the rest of the night. Who knows? Requests for what, Anxious Dude? Like for games to play? It's rough for me only because I am on a very tight budget. I'm not a full-time content creator. Is my thing making noise? It might be making noise. I don't know. I'm not a full-time content creator, and I have a family, and I have a lot of bills, and so buying games that people request for me to play is kind of rough for me. Like even this, the only reason I bought it is because I got a random YouTube payout, and the only reason I bought Elden Ring is because somebody bought it for me. But I'm always open to suggestions. I just can't promise that it'll be anytime soon because I don't have money to burn right now, and I'm not really making money doing content. I don't have a lot of subs or anything on Twitch, and YouTube doesn't really bring anything in either, so it's down to TikTok, and TikTok doesn't pay in Canada, so I don't really make much. I'd be open to it. I just can't promise that it'll be anytime soon. Okay, so we're going to continue with some Dead Space. I'm going to get that started now, because I think everything's working. I think everything's good, so we're as good as we're going to get. I don't have the room set up super dark. I didn't feel like it tonight. It's a huge setup to like get things to be spooky for me, so I may not get too scared, but I'm gonna enjoy this anyway. So let's do it. I guess we can just stop this music. Wait, wrong one. We can stop this music, unmute this. I don't know how loud the game is gonna be. Hopefully it won't be too bad. We'll find out really soon. Okay, so all of them are just here, so that's at okay 2/3/2023. They're all 2/3/2023. I feel like when you start a new game, it doesn't allow you to have different files going at once. Do you know what I mean? Like I started a brand new game, I feel like it erased my original game, but that's okay. I'm pretty close to where I was in the original, I guess. So that's 1:15 in the morning. That's 3:36. And then this, what time is this? So 12, that's what, 21 is, 24 is midnight. So that's like 8, that's really early. Okay, so this might have been the next day. So I'm assuming this is probably the last one from the live stream. This one maybe. I'm thinking it might be this one is from the last live stream because it was at 1:42 or 1:15 or something. I can't tell. Why are there two different sets of times? Do you notice how it says autosave 2/3/2023 21:20 then right underneath it says 30:28. Is that how long I've been playing? 30:28? Okay, so it's got to be this one then. 1:42. I'm assuming it's this one. So I have all the consoles, Anxious Dude. I have the PS5. I've got the Xbox. Right now we're using the Series X. I've got the PS5. I use the Series X right now. I've also got a pretty beefy PC, so I kind of just play on whatever. I have a Switch as well. So I play on whatever depending on the game and what I'm planning. The only reason I got Dead Space on the Xbox is apparently it's a little bit more, or it was on launch, a little bit more stable on the Xbox, and the PlayStation's in the other room. Somebody else is using it on a regular basis. I didn't want to have to unplug it, bring it over every single time I wanted to play. I just wanted to leave it here, and so I've kind of left the PlayStation over there, and so the Xbox is kind of what I fell on to start streaming. Okay, the only thing I am gonna do, I feel like the game is really quiet. I don't know. I don't think there's anything I can do to turn it up. We'll see. Cottage Cheese, hello, how you doing? Hey! Josh, how are you? It's really good. If you've played a lot of the original one, it's very similar. It's just slightly different. Artistically, it's very, very pretty. And they've made it more scary based on Shut up, that's scary. Because it's the lighting is a lot more effective in this game, the monsters kind of just appear out of nowhere. And I don't know if the original Dead Space had this, but I know this one has like an AI director, so you can go back and revisit the same areas over and over again. It's not like the old game where like once you reach the next area, that's it, you're stuck there. Here you can go back and forth, and the AI director will actually change based on how often you've been there, how long you're taking, what you're doing, and it'll make the game more difficult based on that. So it definitely keeps you more on edge than the original game did. The original game was a masterpiece in my opinion. I'm feeling this one's keeping up just as well. But if you know the other one inside out, this may be a little bit of a walk in the park, but I'm really liking it. I'm really liking it. Yeah, I think... Oh, sound effects, that's creepy. I think it's a great game. I think they did a really good job. I wasn't planning on buying it. I was actually going to get Callisto Protocol, which is from the guys that made the original. And then I heard that one was terrible. And so I was kind of just holding off. And then I got all the reviews. I watched all the reviews for this one, and everybody was saying it was amazing, that it was so worth it. And so I was like, okay, I got to try it. And then I got a YouTube payout. So I was like, I have a little bit of money. Let's do it. I'm not regretting it. Okay, you've never played it before. So it's very much like Aliens type of feel, you know. It's very jump scare oriented. Like it can build up tension, but it's very much like big loud bang in front of your face every few seconds to kind of keep you on edge. It's very gruesome, and it can be stressful because a lot can come at you at the same time, and it's very easy to kind of get your butt handed to you. I think it's great. The story is kind of convoluted and hard to follow, but it's a really good time. The first game was amazing, and this one's turning out to be pretty good too. I would definitely suggest it. If you've never played it, I would absolutely suggest it. My hand is really itchy. Okay, let me just... What was I doing? I was gonna... Microphone. I want my microphone just to be muted. I want my microphone to be muted. What am I doing here? Where's my headphone thing? That's system, that's music, that's sample, that's headphones. Okay, the mute button. Oh, okay, that's not what I want. I want... Okay, well, my headphones are all the way up, so that's as good as that's gonna get. Let's go to microphone, and let's mute option. I just want to mute to my headphones. So if I press this, you can still hear me. I can't hear me, so that adds a little bit of extra scariness to me. Oh, dude, yeah, go get some rest. One sick child is a lot to handle. Two of them is... I don't know where you're finding your energy, man. Have a good night. Thank you for popping in. I appreciate you being here, dude. Thank you so much, man. Okay, let's do this. Okay. Okay, so I am going to the medical deck. Yeah, I think we're doing the elevator now, or the tram now. So anybody who's watching me on TikTok, I'm actually live on YouTube and Twitch. Anybody who's on YouTube and Twitch, I'm actually live on TikTok. You may see jump scares happen. I don't know if you'll hear them. Apparently there was no sound coming through last time, so you may not hear the jump scares, but actually I might be able to fix that right now. But there are jump scares, so you might get me screaming. And so if you see me freak out and scream out of nowhere, it's because... Aha, it is turned off. Okay, there. So that should fix it. So you should be able to hear jump scares happen. You'll hear a jump scare happen. You'll probably hear me scream. So if you're wearing headphones, just be prepared. They don't always happen, but sometimes somebody will come in and they'll do like 2 or 3 jump scares, and it involves me screaming. So just be prepared for that. Night Owl, how you doing, man? Dakota, hello. Dakota, no, I actually started late. I've just started. Inuyugi, hello. Nice to see you as well. Night Owl, I am so disappointed. I was watching your videos. I had no idea that technically we're not allowed to be on the red and the purple at the same time. That it's only like... Hey! Sam the Unicorn with the raid! Welcome, Raiders! How you doing? Welcome, everybody. Sorry, TikTok, I'm getting raided over on Twitch. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Luis, and this is my channel, Retro for the First Time. We are playing some Dead Space. I've played the original. I haven't played the remake up in... Like, I'm on the first chapter. I do a variety of stuff. I usually stream about 3 times a week, usually, if I'm not dead tired. There is going to be a change. Everybody who's watching, there is going to be a change. I have been streaming Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, but the person who was covering me on Fridays can't cover me Fridays anymore, so I'm actually going to have Wednesdays off now. And so I'm probably going to be streaming Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is probably what it's going to be. That's probably what it's going to be. It might be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I haven't fully decided yet. I got to see what my energy is like. But I do stream a variety of stuff. Right now we're working on Elden Ring and Dead Space. We were working on Resident Evil 2, but once this came out, I kind of wanted to play this. What else is there to say? I'm live on all 3 platforms, so if you see me talking to people that you don't see in the chat, it's because I'm live on TikTok. And so I haven't found a clean way to have chat kind of intersect between both, so you might see me answering people that aren't really in chat, and it's because they're on a different platform. Sam, how have you been? How is life? Thank you so much for the raid. I really appreciate that. How sweaty is my butt? I am in a mesh chair, so no sweat as of right now. No sweat as of right now. For some reason my headphones sound really quiet and I don't know why. Okay. Ooh, it seems very dark. I'm going to double audio. Autumn, thank you so much for the follow. I really appreciate that. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to my little corner of the internet. Thank you so much. Yeah, so many chats. But yeah, Night Owl, I'm really disappointed. Oh, there we go. Now the volume's there. I'm really disappointed because I didn't know that was possible. Now, mind you, I'm not trying to do this as like a full-time career, and I don't care if I lose my affiliate status, so I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. But I definitely am not gonna tell other people to do it because it's not worth it for them. Once I get scared, no, then it won't be sweat, Dakota. It's gonna be pee. Lots of pee. Sam, do your thing. Do your thing. I understand. After a stream, going for a lurk is okay. Even if you don't lurk and you just take off, I'm cool with it. Streaming is exhausting, so I totally get it. But thank you so much. I appreciate that. Twitch seems easier. Yeah, I got used to Twitch now. At first, though, it was hard. I had a very hard time getting used to Twitch. I really didn't like Twitch in comparison to YouTube. Now I'm used to it. YouTube feels a little bit barren, I guess I would say. Just because there's no like raid alerts or anything, right? I think they implemented like a raid feature, didn't they? I don't know. I can't remember. But definitely it feels different. It's very different. It's less gamified for sure. Store is a one-stop shop to purchase, sell, and store items for later use. Store can be purchased with credits, inventory from the inventory, sell inventory items. Perfect. 10,000. Oh, I would love to upgrade. Wait, is that the one I have on, isn't it? That's the one I have on, right? Is that the one I have on? I don't know. So I am on console. I'm playing on Xbox. How? I don't think I... actually... Does that mute it? No, it doesn't. Okay. Okay. I was trying to lower the volume for the gameplay for you guys, but keep it loud for me, but I can't do it right now. I have to tinker with it. Anyways, I was looking at playing it on PC because the graphics are slightly better, obviously. I've got a fairly beefy video card, so I was like, I want to see it with full graphics. But I didn't want the problem I'm having with Elden Ring, which is I'm barely being able to get 30 frames out while I'm streaming, and I have to turn down all the graphics anyway. So I figured I'd get it on Xbox. That way I can still get some of the ray tracing, some of the higher quality, and not have my computer be completely bogged down and stream at a decent quality. So I'm playing it on Xbox. I would have much rather played on PC though. The whole game was really broken, Night Owl. I was just watching a video this morning, I think, where they were talking about how they implemented a bunch of fixes because the game was very. It wasn't so much buggy on consoles. It wasn't implemented properly when it came to the lighting. There was some issues with like stair stepping on edges, and the ray tracing wasn't working very well because they. What is it? I can't remember exactly what it is. It's something like the upscaler, I want to say, like the DLSS type thing that AMD uses instead of NVIDIA's. And so Xbox has hardware dedicated to doing that, and PlayStation doesn't have hardware dedicated to doing that. And so they found a software way to do it on PlayStation, which was causing a lot of issues with upscaling the image. And so there was like weird shimmering happening and some weird stuff happening with the lighting because of it. And the Xbox's hardware wasn't implemented very well, and so they kind of just got rid of it all. So apparently there was a lot of issues graphically with the game. But this patch is supposed to have fixed it, so I don't know. Oh, that's really dumb, Night Owl. Yeah. It's sad that we live in a time where that's kind of normal now, where games come out and they're just so broken, and you kind of just expect it to be broken. But yeah, this game's had a little bit of a rough patch, but that also tells me how good the game is when that's not really headline news. The big thing is how great they did making this game. Okay. It's so... Okay. Whew. Okay, so let's do this. Did I get any more of these? How many do I have? One more node. I definitely want to bring up capacity and capacity. Reload time. Do I want faster reload or more capacity so I won't have to reload as often? You know what? Maybe more capacity. Merle, hello. Nice to see you. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, I agree, Night Owl. I agree. They definitely, I feel like they actually moved forward with the times. They didn't just kind of remake it and stay as if it was still the early 2000s. So it's always nice to see a company do that, but without any like drastic changes. The one example, and I want to make a video about it soon, the one example that comes to mind is Conker's Bad Fur Day. That when that came out, it was very, very uncensored. And then when they did the remake, 10,000, really? How much do I have? 65. Do I have anything to sell? Nothing I want to sell. And then they came out with it during a time when like the government in the States was really pushing child safety with video games. And so they censored a bunch of stuff. And it just felt over the top. Instead of it feeling kind of natural, it was just very... It just kind of wrecked the whole feel. I'm glad that they didn't do that with this. They added new features to kind of keep people safe, but without really messing with the game in general. Yeah, people just expect games to be buggy now. And I hate that because I genuinely think that that a big problem is the CEOs and everything causing the buggy games to come out. It's not the devs. It's not that the games are worse. It's CEOs are setting deadlines and fans are getting very demanding. You have a lot of entitled fans, and I'm not talking about... I'm not talking about any specific genre or franchise. Just in general, gamers are very entitled and they want their game yesterday. And so when they find out a game's going to take longer than they want, they start having a meltdown. And you have CEOs that, like, they set unrealistic dates, so the games come out so broken. And then you have the opposite extreme. You have devs that are ignoring fans completely and kind of push the game on, and then the next thing you know, it's 12 years later and the game's still in development and it's in hell and it's falling apart. It's a fine balance, but I think CEOs are really, really tainting the whole industry in a really negative way. Definitely too young to be playing that, Dakota. Definitely too young to be playing it. Conker's Bad Fur Day was awesome, though. I love that game. We're in chapter 2. Is there any way... There is no way for me to turn it down for you guys and not for me. Hold on, can I... No, it's not even here. Yeah, I can't even turn it down for you guys and just for me. Oh, well. Oh, Skull and Bones, yeah. That one, and then the one with the pig guy and the monkey guy, and it's made, I think it's by Ubisoft Quebec or Ubisoft Montreal or whatever. Beyond Good and Evil. That one's been in development hell forever. Didn't that beat Duke Nukem now for how long it's been in development? L for aim, B for kinesis. Okay. Oh, I pushed the wrong button. Oh, I pushed the wrong button. I messed up. I used health and I didn't mean to. Okay. See, the only thing I don't like is that it's bright in here, so it's not as scary for me. I like it when it's dark, but when it's dark, the camera struggles, and I didn't want to have the headache of trying to get the lighting right. There we go. This doesn't seem like it's the right way. It's definitely not the right way. Yeah, there was a lot of talk about Skull and Bones. Oh god. The hell was that? But yeah, I think that one was just recent. Was that one of the ones that was canceled? That Ubisoft had their meeting where the CEO blamed everybody but himself for all the bad decisions that he made. And I think that was one of the ones that was canceled now. There was another pirate game that came out that apparently was really good, but nobody picked up on it, and it just hasn't gone anywhere. Okay.
Gotta hold the line.
Does she have a random hand just... Oh, it spiked her. Oh, man. So I actually played a few hours of the pirate game Xbox released. What was it called? Sea of Thieves. And if it wasn't open world and almost pointless, I would have loved it. It was really fun goofing off. Like, I played a little bit with Girl Thulu and Alana. We played a few nights, not super often. Alana and her played a lot more than I did, because I was working mornings at the time, so I was never up at night. But that one, it was fun. I just wish it would have had more than just like treasure hunting and griefing other players, or like a busier world, if that makes sense. But that game, I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was fun. It would definitely be more fun with a bunch of friends, but that game wasn't bad. I do like the pirate thing, and that's why I was kind of excited for Skull and Bones, because it seemed like a more adult Sea of Thieves. Yeah, Night Owl. And the worst part is that it's the Minecraft of pirates, but Minecraft at least lets you like build a bunch of stuff. In Sea of Thieves, you just get to sail around. Like, you didn't even get to like build like a fortress and all this kind of stuff, which if they would have at least allowed that kind of stuff, then that would have made it a lot more entertaining. I'm disappointed that it wasn't more like that or more story based, because that game graphically was very impressive. And like even the things you could do, lots of fun.
Lifting station lockdown.
I guess... What's this? I guess that's where I'm going?
Now arriving at flight deck, tram control.
Oh, you know what? I was just saying, back to the earlier conversation, Night Owl. I was talking about glitches. My brother actually called me about a glitch in this game. Why am I pausing? About a glitch in this game. He mentioned to me that he was playing, and he ended up actually saving the game, but right as he saved it, a monster came up and got him, and so he died. And then he went to load, and apparently this game has like an instant loading time type of thing, but it still plays like a small loading animation before it actually lets you play. And what happened to him is that the game would actually load and the AI would start, so he would get attacked before the screen showed, and by the time the gameplay showed, he'd be dead. And so he got stuck in an endless loop because he loaded right next to the guy that was killing him, and so he'd be dead by the time that the game loaded in. So there were definitely glitches I had heard of. I completely forgot about that. My brother told me about that. Yeah, I hate when stuff like that happens in video games. I've never had something like that happen. My biggest one was Final Fantasy 12. There was, okay, so if I'm, okay, let's check medical. Final Fantasy 12, there was a boss fight. I can't remember the details anymore. I haven't played it in forever, but there was a boss fight, and like you enter a room or like an area and you can't back out. And I entered that area, I saved, and I had no health, Phoenix Downs or whatever, and I had no health potions of any type, and all of my members were down except for the one character, and she only had like 6 health, and I got stuck. And it was like 4 or 5 hours into the game. I got so mad, I never went back to the game. Then somebody bought it for me on stream, and I played it for one stream on stream, and nobody watched, so I just never went back to it. But yeah, I got stuck in one of those loops. That was infuriating to have that happen. Okay. Oh, that's cool. Look at that little detail of like there being used health containers here. I'm gonna turn this light off. It's bugging me. I'm gonna turn off a few of the lights actually. That one's okay. I'll turn off the light behind me. Maybe that'll help a little bit. It's way too bright in here, and it's like totally killing my spoopiness. You know what? I'll even turn that one off. Is that this one? I'll turn that one off. Seems a little bit more scary. The autofocus is going to be a mess. I was having a lot of issues. The lighting is messing with the autofocus for some reason. It just can't get my face, so it'll focus for a second. Right now it's focusing because I'm looking right at camera. As soon as I look away, it stops, and then it focuses on the background. So I apologize, but it's worth it. It's way too bright in here, and I don't get scared when it's bright. You know what? Let's even turn off the TV. Goodbye, TV. Okay. It's still bright, but it's better. Kinesis is my favorite tool in this game because you can pick up, or at least in the original game, you could pick up the body parts and shoot them. So if you run out of bullets, at least you always have one way to attack. It's not always the best way, but at least it's a way. Oh. Not scary at all, everybody. Not scary at all.
No, nothing. Medical's a slaughterhouse. They barricaded access to the morgue.
The morgue?
Yeah, but the barricade was put together in a hurry. A hydrazine tank might blow it open. Just need a detonator, like maybe a shock pad. Nicole could be through there if...
Isaac. The one who attacked us. I swear to God it was Chen. But... I saw him die.
Okay, that should work.
If they barricaded the morgue, maybe it was to keep something in.
Okay. The lighting is so good in this game. Ooh, they have security levels now for the lockers. Nice, I do like that. Oh, wrong button. That's inventory, okay. Okay. So many people talked about ray tracing just being a gimmick, but I love ray tracing so much. Did I get more credits? Oh man, I want more nodes, but 10,000 and I've only got 7. Okay, I think I checked everything out, so let's go in there. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, it's locked. Why is it locked? I forgot about that guy. Oh god, this one's powerful. Let's just stick with this for now. He's right down to the skull. Okay, just in case, don't come to life. That heart rate is exactly what I'm feeling right now. Stasis is full. Okay. I think I want to... Hold on. I want to take this off. Because I think that's what's messing with the audio for me. A little bit. That little bit of extra layer that adds a little bit more sound leak, which then makes the volume a little bit quieter for me. Oh god, I should have probably put the leather ear cuffs on. That way I could stop a bit more of the outside noise. Okay. Okay. The loud sound effects, they're just the worst, because they always make you think something's about to happen. It didn't work as well as it does in the first game. That's the wrong thing. Alright, Merle, have yourself a good night. Thank you for popping in. It's super early, right? Get some sleep. Sleep in. Sleep in all the time. Don't dream of me too much. I know it's hard, but try not to. Alright, so I guess that's not what I want. I want this one. Better safe than sorry. Exactly, Dakota. Exactly. I try to live my whole horror survival that way. Better safe than sorry. Except for when I'm really terrified. Then it's just run. Then it's just run all the time. Oh! 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 What is that? Oh god! I'm stuck. Oh god, move, move. Oh god. Oh, not cool. I hear another one. I hear another one. So scared. That game is horrendously bad, Dakota, and bad in like the way that it's the scariest game ever. I struggled with that game. That was one of the scariest flat screen games I ever played. That game was rough. Loved it though, but it was so rough. Yes, Nick, I'm actually live on Twitch right now. The same screen name as it is here. Live on Twitch and YouTube and here. All at the same time. I'm too indecisive. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to, you know, dedicate time to Twitch or YouTube or TikTok over the other platforms. So I decided to just be live on all three. That way, at least everybody has a chance to see that I'm live. Because I'd go live on Twitch and YouTube, and then I'd go over to TikTok, and people would be like, oh, I missed you. Or I'd go live on TikTok, and everybody on Twitch would be like, I haven't seen you in a while. So, no, I've been live, guys. But this way, I'm live on all three. Then when people don't come, I could hold them responsible and be like, you guys let me down. Make a whole video about it and everything. 500 views and nobody even came. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be. I'm feeling saucy right now. I do, Night Owl, I do. Whoa! Oh, okay.
Entering zero gravity.
I was trying to get a stream key for a while, and I couldn't get one. You know, I tried emailing out to TikTok and stuff, and there was like some application paper you could fill out, and I filled that out and nothing. But I am counted as a Canadian TikTok creator. Like, I'm part of the Canadian creator group or whatever. Like, TikTok Canada contacted me, and so I don't have a direct contact there, but that allows me to contact somebody at TikTok at least. And so I was able to get a number that way. Or a key that way. Okay, so boost the suit thrusters to navigate zero gravity. That to take off. I'm not, Night Owl. I meant to do that today. So I actually looked it up because I saw Duty Beard tweet about it. And then I went on, and then I noticed Billy Tricks is on there. That was really cool to know somebody and see them on the website. That's awesome. But anyway, I went onto the site, and it said that I had to pay monthly. So I just logged off because I was like, I'm not going to pay $5 a month to get vertical when what I'm doing now works fine. But then I saw Harris Heller, I think, did a video, and he said it was free. Because Duty Beards didn't say anything. He just said, check this out, guys. And then the video was there saying, hey, you can now use vertical, but nobody talked about pricing in any way. And then when I went to the site, it's like $4 a month. And I was like, no, not doing it. But then Harris said that it was free. And so I want to look into it to see if I can get that plugin. Because if I can get that plugin, that actually might reduce some of the load on my computer, because right now I have OBS, Streamlabs OBS, and then TikTok Live Studio all open at once. That way I might be able to just have one instance of OBS open and then TikTok Live Studio to go live onto TikTok without having the third instance and having to screen capture and all that kind of stuff. The bot is paid. Yeah, see, and their website doesn't make that clear. At least when I went to their main page, it just looked like you have to pay for everything. And so I was like, no, they need to kind of work on that to make it clear that, like, hey, this specific thing is paid. These are the things that are for free. So I had to go back and look at it. Sage Main, this is Dead Space, the remake. Yeah, I'll definitely do that, Night Owl, because that might make my life a lot easier. Whoa! do I... Oh, that, okay. These lights are loud. Imagine walking into your house in the middle of the night and turning on one of those light switches. Shake the whole house. You'd never be able to sneak in. Where's the platform that I'm heading to? You may have been Night Owl. I didn't see that one. At least it hasn't come up on my For You page yet. I gotta look it up. But yeah, because like right now I have... So what I've had to do, because this is even more complicated than I thought it was. So originally I had like my display capture to grab my gameplay, and then I was using a window capture to capture my webcam. And I was using Streamlabs OBS to do the webcam, which is pretty straightforward, not too complicated. But now that I'm doing capture card, I can't just screen capture because I actually go to a different input, so the computer doesn't see the input that I'm on, so I can't do that. But if I try to use my capture card as a video device, only one of my OBS instances can use it at a time. And so then I was like, okay, well, how do I make it work so it looks okay? So then I put both of them into one canvas, but at 1080p or whatever, the videos were actually compressed down to a quarter of the page, which then reduced the quality even further. So I was like, what the hell can I do? So what I ended up doing was I actually did a 1080 by 21 whatever, the wides, like the 4K for the 1920. I did the 4K number for that, and then 1080 for the up and down vertical. And then I put both side by side. So I have my webcam taking a full 1080p and then the video game taking a full 1080p. And then I did a projection. So I did like project the output so that it like almost like a sample of what you're outputting. So I did that and I full screened it to try to give it the best resolution possible. And then I capture that window, but then I have to capture the same window multiple times and then crop it so it fits. But every time I restart the computer, the crop has to be redone because it doesn't hold a proper crop. And if I change the resolution, it messes with things. It's so complicated. So that plugin I think might make it easier, because then I could just do everything on OBS and literally just do a window capture on TikTok and just send that out. And then that way only OBS is what I have to worry about and TikTok just sends out the window capture. So that's kind of what I'm aiming at if I can get it to work the way that I'm imagining. Yeah, I'm hoping it'll make life a lot easier, because right now it's so complicated. Because I'm stuck. For anybody who's watching on TikTok, I'm talking to people on Twitch right now. But like I want the quality to be okay. There are so many of my friends that have very high-end streams, but they're all literally just grabbing their stream and just sending it out horizontal on the vertical platform. And so they don't even have it set up so like they can flip the phone and then you get the full screen. It still stays in one orientation, and so their screen is shrunk down to like a tiny size, and like I don't like how it looks, and I don't want that as my output. So I'm trying to make it look specific for the platform, right? I haven't really done anything for YouTube and Twitch because I lost all my stuff when I wiped my computer, but I want it to be specific to the platform, right? Like if you're on TikTok, I want it to be made for TikTok, what you're watching. But if you're on Twitch and YouTube, I want it to be made for Twitch and YouTube. I didn't want to cut corners. I've just made it really complicated for myself. I still think it looks really decent, but it's pretty complicated. Really, Night Owl? Okay, I didn't even know that. That's even easier. Now, what I have to see, though, because I haven't streamed using OBS to TikTok in forever. I've only used Live Studio. And I started using Live Studio because TikTok, no offense, but your app is really bad. But I started using TikTok Live Studio because when I last streamed from OBS to TikTok, it gave me a key that would refresh every time I wanted to go live. I'd have to go live on my phone or on my tablet. Then I'd have to take that live and it would give me the key then input that into OBS manually, but there's no way to copy from my tablet and send it to my computer. I have to manually type it in or copy, email, paste it to myself. And it just becomes super complicated. And then if I wanted to start the stream, I'd have to start it on the phone and then start it on the computer. And then if I wanted to end it, I have to end it on the computer, then end it on the phone. And one time I had an issue where I ended it and I wanted to restart it right away, and it refreshed the key, and so I had to go through the whole process of finding a new key, sending it out to myself, and putting it in. It became such a headache. So that's why I started using TikTok Live Studio, because there I could just go live. Plus they have a chat window included, whereas OBS didn't have that, so I had to use my tablet. And TikTok's chat, there was a little while there where I had access to make the chat full screen, and now it disappeared on my phone, and so it's literally just the bottom quarter of the screen, so I would miss half the chat. And so it was just TikTok Live Studio was easier. But if they have these plugins, I'd be willing to deal with the chat issue, because I wonder if I could, I don't know, maybe. Even so, I'd be willing to deal with the chat issue if I could just get it all on OBS. And if I can't get it all on OBS, at least just window capture the vertical section of the OBS plugin. Then I don't have to do anything except for run OBS, and TikTok will just stream out a window capture, and that's it. I know you can dock. Okay, so you can. Okay, I gotta look up how to find the TikTok chat to dock it, because that I don't know how to do. I definitely have to look that up. There's another thing that I've seen some people do. I don't know if McQueeb does it, but I've seen other people do it. His name escapes me right now. He's a horror streamer. He's really awesome, and he has it set up so his like followers and gifts and stuff on TikTok will trigger jump scares in his ear. I haven't been able to figure out how to do that either. I want to learn how to do that too, because then that way I could have jump scares on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube. That'll make it a bit more convenient. But that plugin I think is going to be huge, because yeah, I hate, and it's not that I hate my friends' streams, I just don't like how they look when they're not made for the platform. And it just might be my neurospicy butt being very picky, but it just, to me, it comes off as like it's a second thought. It's secondary to the rest of your stream, or like you just don't care enough for that platform. And so I don't like how that looks. But it also involves a huge headache in getting it set up the way I'm doing it. So I think the plugin, that's very good news to hear. Yeah, I have no clue, Night Owl. I have no clue. I have to do some research. It's just really hard because TikTok is so new when it comes to live streaming, and like it or not, Twitch streamers have arrogance isn't the right word, but there's like a culture, a belief that like Twitch is the only place worth streaming or spending any time streaming on, or like worth dedicating any time towards as a streamer. I mean, not as a viewer. And they completely dismiss all the other platforms. And so like all the footage online when it comes to like streaming advice or streaming tech issues, all of it is dedicated towards Twitch. And so it's really hard to find anything dedicated to any other platform. And like
Still holding this position. What's happening there?
Give me a second.
Did you find Nicole?
No sign of her yet. But I found some hydrazine that should work on the barricade. I just need to find a shock pad.
Okay. Work fast, Isaac.
So I looked up a bunch of like, I've been spending time trying to, YouTube how to use the TikTok Live app, but they're all very basic setups. Like it's all just, this is how you get your camera on the screen. This is how you're going to get the alerts on the screen. And it's like, yeah, I want something deeper than that, but there's nothing out there because all the streamers are streaming on Twitch. And so there's no, what's the word? There's no manpower behind it. And so with no manpower, it's very, very slow that people figure out how to do stuff on there. Yeah, Twitch really does. Twitch really does. It drills that into you with all the rules and regulations and the affiliate programs and all that. And then it's that whole thing of Twitch has convinced everybody of it, and now the people that were early adopters that are at the top are now perpetuating that, even though they don't get any benefit extra from it. Instead of fighting back and going, hey, we should be able to stream wherever we want, or hey, you should pay us more to make it worthwhile only streaming to you. there's enough pushback that Twitch doesn't feel like they have to do anything. And so it's almost within the culture itself, they've now just kind of given it life to basically make Twitch the only place to be. And again, Twitch definitely has some much stronger tools than all the other platforms. The gamification is a big one. Things like rating, things like, you know, bits and channel points, and having different types of tools that trigger things on your stream. All of that really makes Twitch worthwhile for a lot of people. YouTube and TikTok have a long way to go before catching up. YouTube's making a lot of strides lately, but it's still not there yet. But I do think that they are still viable options. TikTok's main option is just that their algorithm is so powerful for discoverability. Like, there's nothing like it right now. And YouTube used to be like that. When I started streaming on YouTube, it was very common for me to have 5 or 6 people per stream follow who came just from the suggested page. That they had never heard of me, but there was one in particular that always sticks out. Now she's a streamer that she started following. She didn't like live streams. She was just happening to watch a video game video, and I popped up in the corner and she clicked it and started watching, and she just liked my personality and stuck around. Now she's a streamer. YouTube used to do that a lot. Like I was getting on average about 100 followers every week and a half or so, and half of them were people that didn't find me live. They were just, I was suggested to them, or it wasn't through a raid or through somebody else. It was just, I came up on their suggested page and then they started following me. YouTube used to be really powerful, and then YouTube went through this really weird phase where they were pushing streaming a lot, and then all of a sudden they just put us on the back burner. And not just that, but they did everything possible to make streaming not worthwhile, because they stopped suggesting us. They put a bunch of rules as to who would get suggested and how to be able to get things like emotes and stuff, which fine, whatever. But then they also changed the back alley, like the back page or whatever, where you would set up your stream. It used to be very straightforward to just like click a button and you can like set up future streams and your current streams. And then it got really convoluted. Like, you had to click 4 or 5 pages in just to make a scheduled stream. It's still pretty convoluted now, but not as bad as it was. There was a while there where it was almost impossible to get a stream set up properly. And even when you did set it up properly, there was a whole bunch of issues with it all the time. And so it was rough for a while there. Now it's gotten better. But I think that's more to do with YouTube as a company and not so much as people not wanting to watch streams on YouTube. I think YouTube just said, screw you guys, you're not making us enough money. We don't need to dedicate time to you, which really sucks. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely, Night Owl. Yeah, TikTok's monetization is no good at all. I got one of those messages basically saying like, hey, you can now get subs, or not you can get subs, but like subs are a thing, except I'm in Canada and I don't have access to it. So like, what good is it telling me about it if I can't use it? Or I get emails from them about all these different things that they're doing, and it's like, I don't have access to any of it. So what are you telling me for? Yeah, TikTok is a bit of a mess. TikTok is a bit of a mess. Yeah, Dakota, I don't post super often on Instagram. A lot of it is what I post on TikTok. I do take pictures once in a while, but when I lost my hair, I got very self-conscious about pictures, and so I stopped taking pictures of myself. And now I'm not self-conscious about myself now. It's more of, because I'm more aware of myself now that I'm like going through this whole like ADHD medication and stuff, because I'm more aware of myself, I now feel very awkward in pictures. I feel okay in front of the camera, but it's when I take a picture and post it, it just feels like I'm doing what's expected of women, if that makes sense, because I don't understand what guys do when it comes to pictures. Most of the guys that I see posting stuff on Instagram and whatever are either super hot models or they're out with their friends, and I don't have friends. And the selfie thing seems to be more of like women who stream tend to do more selfies. And so I feel like I'm not grasping it. And so I'm self-conscious only because like I know I don't understand socializing. And so like I don't want to take those pictures and have everybody think, oh, this guy's just so into himself, if that makes sense. So I just don't really post much on Instagram because of that.
Entering zero gravity.
Because it's not even like, oh, Oh crap. It's not even like oh, only girls do this. It's literally I see a lot of women doing it. I don't see a lot of men doing it. So I don't understand how people will see it, and like, are they going to look at it and be like, he's so into himself? Whew. Okay. You mostly post your photography and setup. Yeah, and like my setup back there, it looks okay. Actually, it looks really nice right now because like the lamp is reflecting off the TV. That looks pretty good, and it's like dark and moody. I kind of like this. Back there, it looks okay, but my actual computer setup is pretty jank. Like I've got a motherboard with like white highlights on it, which is really nice, but the rest of my case is black. All of my fans are black, so it doesn't match at all. My desk is white, my keyboard is white, but my mouse is black. I have a proper monitor and then a portable monitor that's only like 14 inches, so it's tiny. So like my setup is just jank, so I don't take pictures of it at all, ever. And back there, it's all a mess. Like it's not organized nicely. I don't have it like, it's not like a clean look, if that makes sense. So it's like, I don't want to take pictures of that either. So it's like, I have nothing to take pictures of, so I just don't post much on Instagram. Sometimes your face, but it's still your videos. Oh, absolutely, Dakota. Absolutely. TikTok, I think, has been the most interesting when it comes to that, where you'll post something that is very, very...
It shook the whole ship.
Uh-oh.
I'll check it out.
Oh, crap. Why is it pointing me this way? I'll post something on TikTok that is completely inconsequential. It's nothing at all. Like, I'm not giving a hot take. I'm not saying anything crazy, and somebody will get mad at me for it. I posted a video of my 8-year-old daughter making a gun sound. And I got like 5 comments that were like, actually, that's an SMG. That's not a real machine gun. She's 9. She's 9 years old. I'm not expecting, and we're in Canada, I'm not expecting her to know what every single gun sounds like and to make proper gun noises corresponding to the specific gun. The trend is that they always have some guy showing his girlfriend doing a gun noise, and it usually resorts to pew, pew, pew. And my daughter actually made like a gun noise that little boys would do. But people are like, it's an SMG. It's actually a .25 millimeter SMG with a half a clip. Why are you getting so mad over a sound effect? It's a sound effect. I think that says more about you, that you're so upset that a 9-year-old didn't make the accurate sound. Like, is your life so pathetic that you're mad about that? So I've definitely learned that, Dakota. People will get mad no matter what you post. I think my favorite, once I posted a video where I was pretty much roasting PlayStation. Oh, up there. Okay, let's go back. I screwed up. I made a video where I was... No, I was roasting Microsoft. I was roasting Microsoft, and some guy commented, the most toxic people are Microsoft fans. And then I said, actually, I've found that it's pretty much split down the middle. And then he started just like freaking out that I didn't agree with him, that Microsoft players are more toxic than PlayStation players. And then he called me a fanboy and said that I obviously just like, I only want to suck up to them and I can't see what they're actually like and blah, blah, blah. On a video where I was literally making fun of Microsoft and the Xbox. Like, I was criticizing them in the whole video. The whole video was about me hating on Xbox. I like Xbox. I'm on Xbox. But that was the whole video. And he was mad at me calling me a fanboy of Xbox. Like, people will just make up their own reason to get mad. It's so stupid. You saw that exact comment? Yeah, Dakota. It's like, okay, it's still a gun, like a weapon, whatever. Americans get so pissed off if you call it a gun, but it is still that kind of a weapon. Like, that's the whole point. Oh, Night Owl, they so are. They so are. Oh wait, I'm going this way. There was a guy once that I was arguing with who we were talking about something about healthcare, and he was using some false information to make his point. So I proved him wrong, and he was going on and on about how like he's a professional, went to college and blah blah blah. And I was like, that's great. I'm like, but that doesn't mean you actually know what you're talking about. And he was just going on and on and on. And he ended up through the fight, he ended up saying something along the lines of that he's a mechanic or like something. It's somebody that works on engines basically. And so I said, that's awesome, but I'm not going to expect a mechanic to understand deep molecular biology. Like that's not an expectation. And he took that as, so you think all mechanics are stupid? And it's like, no, I'm going to go to the mechanic to do the job of a mechanic because that's why he's a mechanic. I'm going to go to a nurse or a doctor to deal with healthcare. I'm not going to call my plumber because my Nintendo isn't working. And I'm not going to call a physicist because my pie burnt in the oven. You're going to talk to the people who are experts in their field. You're not going to rely on some idiot who's an expert in something totally different. Like that's, but he got so offended saying that I called all mechanics on the planet stupid. It's like, no, you put a car in front of me, I'm going to tear that thing apart and it's never going to get fixed again because I don't know what I'm doing. But if I put it in front of a mechanic, he's going to be able to tell me why and how and everything about it. He's just not going to be able to go and dress a wound like I can because unless he was a nurse before he was a mechanic, he's not going to know how to dress a wound properly. But he got so mad because people just invent their own reasons to get mad. It's so ridiculous sometimes. Yeah, neither do I, Dakota. That was the whole thing. That was the part that really bugged me. It's like that. It's a child. Like if I made a video where I was like, all right, guys, I'm gonna do these different sound effects. Here's an AK-47, and then I did that sound. Then I could see people coming in and being like, actually, that's an SMG that's suppressed, and it's actually this and that. Okay, because I said it was this, and it's actually not that. The video says girls can't make machine gun sounds, and I said actually, and then I showed her making a machine gun sound. And people got so mad. It's like, it's a child and it's a goofy video. Relax. Calm yourself. Oh, calm yourself. You're so mad for nothing. Hey, Preston. It's going. It's going. I am distracted right now. I'm distracted right now, but it's going and I'm happy about it. I'm definitely loving... Wait, can I... Okay. I'm absolutely loving this game. It's definitely scary, but because I'm distracted, I'm not paying attention, so I'm not allowing the tension to build. I should probably shut up and let the tension build. How are you doing, man? Oh, it's so good. They did a really good job with this remake. Okay. Oh, whoa! Whoa. I panicked. Could you tell I panicked? I panicked. It's a really good remake. Graphically, they did a very decent job on this. I was talking about this with Night Owl earlier. There were some issues with it on the consoles initially, but it was more like nitpicking issues where, you know, if you're playing on a 4K HDR television and you sat right next to it, you would notice some shimmering in the background. You would notice some weird like artifacts with the lighting, but nothing game breaking. Now they fixed it, but it's such a beautiful game. It looks so good. And they changed it just enough to make it feel not brand new, but it makes you still not know exactly what's going to happen, and once it happens, then you remember what it is. But it's that certain unknowing feeling that makes you feel it makes you not expect what's about to happen. Okay, what am I supposed to do here? Can I... Oh, it's still no gravity. Okay. I see.
God. Took one step out of the captain's nest and Chen, that thing, he almost got me.
You okay?
I trapped him in a damaged escape pod. He's snarling like, this is fucked up. Hurry, Isaac.
But yeah, they did a great job with this remake.
Zero gravity.
Not good. Ooh. Cool. Oh, it's warm in here. It's really warm in this room today. I'm sweating. I'm sweating to the oldies. Ah! That was so loud. Oh, I hear another one. I thought he was dead. I thought he was dead. I stopped shooting him because I thought he died. Okay. I think this is, yeah. But yeah, they did a really, really good job with this remake. Graphically, when I saw the original clips that they were showing with like when they were making it and working on it and stuff, I thought it looked good, but I did think that it was only slightly better than the original, if that makes sense. Kind of like going from like The Last of Us on the PS3 to The Last of Us on the PS4, or sorry, The Last of Us on the PS4 to The Last of Us PS3 to PS4. When they did like the remaster, and it's like, yeah, it's slightly better, I guess. Or like I played State of Decay 2 on the Xbox, came out, and then they had like an Xbox One X upgrade, and it's like, yeah, if you put them side by side, you do see a difference, but if you're playing it, it's kind of like, okay, it's not that much better. Okay. I thought it was gonna be like that, and I was so wrong. This was one of the games that I was like 99% wrong about. I thought it was going to be a really tacky, just boring remake. One that EA was going to wreck with all their greed. I also thought it was only going to be slightly graphically better. And I thought it was going to fail. Well, it hasn't failed. It's definitely changed up enough to make you feel like you're playing a new game. And it's night and day graphically compared to the original, while still feeling like the original. It's really cool how they did that. Is it? Well, I'm talking about the remake, not the remake, the remaster that they did. You know, when they took like the original PS2 one and then just like upped the resolution and added a little bit better lighting and better textures. That one, it was like, okay, yeah, it's better, but like if I played it without looking at it, I would just feel like this is what the original looked like. I do really want to get The Last of Us, the remake that they did of the #1. I do want to get that one because I liked #2. I thought the graphics were beautiful on #2, and I've watched the first episode of the show so far, and I really like it. So now I want to play it. I don't have my Xbox. I don't have my PlayStation in here, and I didn't know Last of Us was on PC, so I might have to look at that. Hey, Liam, how you doing? How are things going? Yeah, they're basically just reskins, up the resolution, a little bit of better texture, and that's about it. And unless they're like the Final Fantasy VIII one, which was really a really weird remake or remaster, because like, yeah, they upped the resolution for some stuff, but some stuff was still really low resolution, and then they completely redid new assets. So it's like, I get it, you lost a bunch of stuff, but at that point, just like redo it all, or like upscale all of it, so then the new assets aren't like that standout. But like when their backgrounds are literally just JPEGs that are like super low resolution, just stretched out, I was kind of upset about that. Oh, I haven't purchased it. I'm not planning to. I only have 8,700. I am glad that I haven't had to respond to questions about that game. Only because it's just not a good situation in general. I'm not part of the community, so I can't speak for the effect the game is having in any way, for or against it. I can't. But I'm not a fan of Harry Potter, so it's just not a concern for me, and that makes me happy, because it wasn't an option to buy it, because I'm not interested in it. So for me, it's like, okay, I'm not gonna get it anyway. I don't have an opinion, because if I say, well, I'm gonna stand up against it, I wasn't planning to buy it anyway. So that's just me being disingenuous and trying to like be righteous for something that I wasn't gonna do anyway. And if I go and if I would have bought it, if I were to say, oh, I was gonna buy it, but I'm not going to, well, I'm not interested in it, so I wasn't gonna buy it anyway, so it was just never an option. So like, hello, we win, how are you? Yeah, like I said, Liam, I'm not in their shoes. I can't speak to any of it. It's kind of like the racism thing, right? I have friends that try to talk to me about certain things, and they're not in my shoes. And when they're not in my shoes, they don't fully grasp the full concept of it, right? Like the example I use, I'm not going to get too crazy in here. The one example, and then we're going to move on, just because I don't want to start a heated debate with anybody. Not that I'm debating with you. I'm saying I don't want other people to get upset and start fighting with each other. But like here's my example that I use all the time, and I used this with Alana, and it seemed to really strike a note with her. Like it made sense to her in that way. So here in Canada, we have the stupid convoyers who are like the biggest morons on the planet, because like they fly Trump flags in Canada. Like that's just how stupid they are. Anyways, and you can see where I stand with that. So there it is. But these people are morons, and they go on and on about like racism and blah blah blah, and like don't give it power and whatever. These people have been very quick, before they were just convoyers, just racists in general, were very quick to always tell me that if I don't like it here, I can go back to where I came from. If I don't like it here, I can leave. And it's very much a different circumstance when they say that to me than when they say it to Alana, who is a Canadian white girl. And so when they say to her, if you don't like it here, then leave, the tone is very much, find a better place to live. You've got it good here because Canada rocks. When they say it to me, though, it's very much a tone of, you are a guest here because you're not one of us. And if you don't like it, then leave. Like if somebody would come to your house and then criticize your house and the way you live, then you'd be like, this is my house. Get the fuck out if you don't like it. It's very much that tone. And so like, unless you're in my shoes, you might hear, if you don't like it, then leave, and be like, that's not a big deal. But it's because it doesn't have the same effect when it's being said to you as it does to me. So it's kind of the same with this game. I can't speak on it because I'm not in the shoes of the community that's being affected by it. So I can't say anything in either direction because I'm not there. All I can do is just listen to the voices. And not the ones in my brain. I try not to listen to those. All I can do is listen to the voices who are being affected. But like I said, I'm not planning. I'm not a fan of the whole world anyways. So I wasn't gonna buy it anyway. But I'm not gonna address something that I have no stake in any way, if that makes sense. Because again, I'm not in those shoes. I can't talk about it because either way, it's not my place to talk about, right? Almost any issue. Night owl. Oh man. Yeah, like it's the whole thing, right? It's all complicated. It's a very complicated situation. All of it in general, just a lot of the stuff that's spoken about is complex. The problem is that a lot of our world in general just relies on little bites and little quick phrases that are easy to say without actually diving into everything else that's involved with it, if that makes sense, right? And so it's always more complex than just the initial quote, right? White privilege is a really, really perfect example, where a lot of people hear white privilege and they think, oh, because you're white, life is easy. And it's like, that's not what it means. That's not what it entails, but it's been turned into that because it's easy to sell that and it's easy to get people mad at that. But that's not what it's about. It's just about that there are certain things that you don't worry about as a white person that you do worry about as a non-white person. And even for me, I am not a dark-skinned Latino. I am a very light-skinned Latino. I'm ambiguous, which is a benefit for me because nobody can really tell what I am. And it almost always works to my benefit. Almost. Like, I worked at a grocery store that was an Italian grocery store, and I got the job because they thought I was Italian. And they were incredibly upset when they found out I wasn't Italian, because I'm so ambiguous looking, right? So it kind of just helps. So I have a certain level of advantage because of the way I look, in comparison to somebody like my brother's wife, who's a lot darker skinned than I am. But regardless of that, both of us are very clearly not white people. And so we still don't have that same level of benefit, because when you look at us, you go, well, they're not white. They might be Italian. They might be Portuguese, which now Italian is categorized as white, but it's still not like a British white person or a Polish white person. But the phrase, what I'm getting at is the phrase is very easy to kind of convince people that it's just that topical meaning. Same with like the self-diagnosis thing, right? There's a big debate that happens a lot with self-diagnosis, that people self-diagnose as autistic. And the thing is that I personally think that that's a really terrible phrase that was chosen, although it fits, because diagnosis very much entails a doctor has certified you as this. And so when you say self-diagnosed, it very much sounds like I've certified that what I say is more than what the doctors say, when it's not what it means. What it means is that I am identifying that these issues are my issues, and the solutions to these issues work for me too. So I identify that whatever this problem is, it fits with my problems. But self-diagnosis is an easy catch-all, but it's also very easy to misrepresent what it actually says. And then people get mad, and then people start fighting. And it's like, there's more to it. It's not diagnosing yourself. There's no benefit to saying you've got autism, but there's definitely a benefit to identifying with those issues and knowing that you face those, because now you could turn around and try to find help that these people are getting and try to get it for yourself, and it might make your life easier. So it's like, it just the world we live in is just so quick to want the shortest response, which leads to the longest argument down the road, because nobody's willing to look past that initial sentence, if that makes sense. Exactly, Night Owl. And that's the problem, is the self, like, I identify as this. It also comes with like the gender politics vibe, right? And there's so much misconstrued with that as well, that it almost adds more fuel to that fire by using that phrasing. It's just, all of it is just so much more complicated than it is. And we live in a society that the internet has turned into a 5-second bit. And if you can't say it in those 5 seconds, then there's like, if you can't say exactly what you mean in 5 seconds, somebody's going to get mad, because somebody's going to misunderstand what you said. Example today. This has nothing to do with any like political thing or anything. Just it fits so well with what we're talking about. So I made a video recently. It's up on TikTok and everything. where I say that Alone in the Dark is to video games what The Grudge was to movies. Very quick sentence that I said. It didn't have any impact in what I was trying to say. I was just saying I want this game to be remade. Like, I think it's awesome. And I just said that kind of as a descriptor of what impact this game had in the gaming genre of survival horror. So I said that. And somebody commented, did they delete it? Nope. I think that saying Fatal Frame is to video games what The Ring is to movies isn't exactly right at face value. You could say that it's like that because of Japanese horror, but no, it's more like Resident Evil because, like The Ring, Resident Evil inspired a lot of Western imitations. Except Resident Evil wasn't what inspired a lot of Western imitations, because Resident Evil was an imitation of Alone in the Dark, and Alone in the Dark was partially an imitation of Sweet Home. And so it's like his argument isn't right, but that isn't what I was referencing. What I was referencing was that it was a movie based on like Japanese style horror, because what Japanese cultures find scary are very different than what American cultures found scary at the time. A lot of American horror movies were about slashers, were about, you know, the killer that you don't know chasing you down, whereas the Japanese inspired horror movies were very much about like the supernatural and being alone in the unknown, in that kind of ghost magic type of feel. And so it brought on a new style of horror. That's what I was referencing. But he got so mad because he was looking at it as I was saying it inspired all the horror games out there, which is not what I said. But we live in a world where if you don't say the exact wording that you exactly mean, somebody's gonna get mad at you for it. And so that's where we end up with problems with things like this video game, with stuff like that, because nobody has the attention span to listen to the whole conversation. They listen to little tidbits, and most of us will get angry before we get to the end and the conclusion, and then it's all for naught. Which is why for me it's not something worth talking about, because I'm not like something worth me talking about because I'm not there, right? I am a straight cis guy. I'm not Jewish. I'm Latino. I'm not in any of the categories that are affected by this game. Like maybe in Far Reach, some of like the more racialized characters, maybe. But even then, I don't know the lore. I don't know anything about that world. So I've got no dog in this fight. So I'd rather not say anything because I'm not going to add anything. And sometimes it's better to just not say anything if you have nothing to add of value, right? You know, there are plenty of people out there that are having a conversation, not an argument, not blaming people. They're literally saying, hey, this is what I'm going through. And you have people that have nothing to do with it chirping in with their opinions when they shouldn't have an opinion because they're not part of it. I was talking to somebody about this recently, that I am part of a very strange niche. Because a lot of the arguments online when it comes to race and racism and cultural appropriation and cultural norms and differences and all that kind of stuff is very much, I don't mean the pun, but it's very much black and white. You are either a minority or you are not. You are either a person of color or you are white. And everybody that's in the middle gets completely passed over. And I am part of that middle group where I am a lighter skinned Latino. But outside of that, I am an immigrant to Canada. I came here when I was almost about two. I don't know, something like that. Anyways, I came here as a very, very, very small child. I grew up Canadian. I grew up with English TV, with the American influence. I grew up with my friends in school here in Canada. I was raised with, Canadian education. But I was always an immigrant. I was always an outsider. I was always an other. But if I go back home, I am not from there. I wasn't raised there. Although I speak 95% perfect Spanish, I still have the Canadian inflection in my voice. I don't speak with the Salvadorian inflection, which
I'm not sure I
shut up,
understand.
Siri. Which in part comes off as he's Canadian, but it also comes off as I am better than everybody, because the people who speak closer to how I speak are the wealthy and the higher educated people in El Salvador, which there's not very many of them. So when I'm over there, I am seen as Canadian. I am seen as white. I am seen as not Salvadorian. So I don't fit in either, because I wasn't raised there and came here as an immigrant. And so my own community shuns me because I don't speak with an accent. I speak in English with the people around me. I don't find a need to speak in Spanish. If somebody communicates in English, I'm going to communicate with them in English, especially if English is their first language. A lot of my friends, they grew up here like I did, but they refused to speak with each other in English. They only spoke with each other in Spanish, even though they butchered Spanish. And they would always shun me because I refused to speak to them in Spanish, because why? You speak better in English. You're going to communicate better with me in English. Let's just speak in English. And so like I'm part of that weird intersection where I don't belong here, but I don't belong there. And so when I see these discussions come up, there's a lot of people that'll chirp in talking about things that they don't comprehend. There was this great video I saw where they were talking about cultural appropriation, and one of the things that this person was bringing up specifically is that it's really frustrating when you see somebody who's come from our home country, or like from Mexico or India or whatever as an adult, and they come here and they see a Canadian wearing a sombrero or a poncho, and when you ask them, hey, does that offend you, they go, no, I think it's awesome. But they've come from a place, this video said this isn't my idea, but this video says this, where they've come from a place where they are in power. Their culture is what is normal there. Their culture is what is common there. Their culture is what is seen by everybody there, and everybody knows it. They haven't grown up being the outsider, where like for me, I couldn't bring homemade food to school because if I did, I'd get beat up or I'd be made fun of for it because it smelt weird, it tasted weird, it looked weird. I got made fun of a lot for it. So I had my cultural food that I had to be ashamed of because nobody else understood it. Whereas somebody who grew up in El Salvador and came here as an adult, they don't see that because to them, everybody ate that. So to them, it's just normal. They don't get why that's something that I would be ashamed of. And so when I see somebody who's mocked me for my food my whole life, bring out my dish and use it as a, like, look what I discovered, but I've been made fun of my whole life for it, it's very different. So when a non-Salvadoran person comments on it, it's like, no, you didn't live my experience. Because yes, you're enjoying that food, but you didn't get mocked for it your whole life like I did. Same with the person from El Salvador when they speak on it, because it's like you grew up in a place where that food is normal, but here it isn't. So I got made fun of it. So you can't talk about it either because you didn't experience what I experienced. You didn't get made fun of for it like I did. And so it's like I choose not to speak about things that I don't really have much to say on because I'm not there and I can't see it from their perspective. And even if I try to understand it, there are so many things ingrained in me that I still don't understand it, because there are still things that I go, I don't really get what that means. But instead of telling them they're wrong because I don't get it, I'm just not going to say anything because I don't get it. Right? And that's kind of where I try to sit, is if I'm not part of the conversation, then I don't need to be a part of the conversation. Yeah, survival horror was definitely was Resident Evil. I think it was during like the load screen. And yeah, Alone in the Dark was the first one that had that kind of tank controls and like the abandoned house that you're exploring with monsters and finding keys and stuff. And that was inspired by Sweet Home, which was the same thing, an abandoned house that you would go through and blah blah blah. Yeah, exactly, Night Owl, and that's exactly it. And for me, it's surreal when people tell me I'm white passing, because my whole life I was never allowed to forget that I wasn't white, my whole life, and now all of a sudden I'm white passing, and anything that I feel gets devalued because somebody else decided that I had an easy life because they think I look white, and so they think everybody saw me as white, except very often I was reminded I wasn't white. There were so many women that I would talk to and we get to know each other and everything was great, and I was point blank told they don't date people who aren't white because they didn't want to date me because I wasn't white. So it's like telling me that what I feel is invalid because you've decided I'm white passing, despite my whole life confirming I'm not white passing. It's frustrating. It's so frustrating. I can't remember what Bill 96 is, Dakota. Was that the thing about not being able to wear headdresses in schools or something? Was that what it was? Big Explosion Ermac. That's a cool name. Super long. But yeah, anyways, what I'm getting at is that we live in a world where things... I was trying to explain one little thing and look how long it took me. So we live in a world where you can't just explain something in 10 seconds. But we've been accustomed to expecting the answer in 10 seconds. And if we don't get it in 10 seconds, then we're going to get mad about it. So we live in a ridiculous time right now. This is the stupidest timeline by far. Oh, okay. Yeah, Dakota. I don't have TV or anything, and so I don't see a lot of what happens in the news, especially like Canadian stuff. What is it about the French language? Like, is it that everything has to be French in Quebec? I want to say I heard something passing about that, but I can't remember. No, it's okay. It's okay, Night Owl. I try really hard to... Ooh, that doesn't sound good. I try really hard to... When somebody brings something up that they may not necessarily understand or that they may have a misconception on, if they're going about it in a non-intentional way, because I've had offensive things said to me that they didn't mean them intentionally at all, and I totally get it. Because I've done it, I still do it. You know, my culture specifically, especially because this is another weird thing that I came to the I came to the realization of, is another thing that makes it really weird being in my shoes is I grew up with my culture, but my parents came here in the late 80s. And so the culture they taught me was what was the culture in the late 80s back home. So they've kind of stuck in that time capsule, and everybody around us was kind of stuck in that time capsule because they all came around the same time. And so a lot of like the beliefs they have are older beliefs, and they haven't evolved because they came here. And we kind of went into our own little social bubble. And so like we have music that's incredibly racist. We have music that's incredibly bigoted, very sexist music. And so there's been a lot that I've had to unlearn. And a lot of it, as an adult, I listen back and I go, oh my God, I can't believe I used to sing that as a kid and I had no idea what it meant. So I know there are people that do stuff like that. So I try really hard to approach something like that in a way where somebody can kind of...
Hazardous anomaly detected.
In a way where people can kind of understand where the issue lies without it becoming an angry debate of them being wrong or whatever, or them being a bigot or hateful or anything like that. And it's something that I've had to deal with a lot of my life, and it's nice to see that it's finally being addressed in some way. So I try to kind of address it in the best way possible without it becoming the whole thing that I talk about. Mind you, if somebody is coming out and being just a complete racist or a bigot, then yeah, I'm gonna completely just come at them just as aggressively. Yeah, Dakota, and it's like there is a lot of there's a lot of complexity, Dakota, when it comes to like the French language, especially in Canada. We were talking about it recently. I don't think you were here at the stream at the time. But somebody said something to me about like speaking French or whatever, and it wasn't on stream. It was in DMs. Somebody was shocked because they're in the States and all of their their packaging on food, the restaurants have Spanish, and they'll have like Spanish drinks in their restaurants and stuff, and she just couldn't comprehend that we don't have that here. And I was explaining to them that we have French on everything, and there's when the Prime Minister speaks, they do it in English and in French, and there's always somebody dubbing when he's speaking the opposite language. So like in Quebec, they'll have somebody dubbing over in French when he's speaking in English, and in Ontario, when he's speaking in French, somebody will dub in English. And what I said to her was that the funny thing is Quebec, in the big picture, is a fairly small part of Canada, yet all of Canada uses French. And the rest of Canada has this feeling of Quebec, that Quebec almost has like a little man syndrome type of thing, where like it's not the biggest in the province, but they want the most power in the province, if that kind of makes sense. Not that they're trying to like overthrow the government. I mean, like they want a bigger say, despite the rest of Canada not being French. And I think a big part of that has to do with government, because government has really gone down to let's make fun of the other guys without actually saying anything of importance at all. Let's just point out what we can criticize. And I think that leads to a lot of hate amongst French Quebecois and non-French Quebecois. There's a lot of tension there. There's a lot of tension there for sure. Going for years, beat myself up for something. Yeah, we win, and I've been lucky. I don't I'm pretty good at not being offensive anymore. I used to be pretty offensive, but it was because I was surrounded by a bunch of guys who were like that. I also went to a school that was very, very ethnic. I think the numbers broke down to something like 70% of my school was black. And then the rest were of some type of ethnicity. So there was like Vietnamese, there was a lot of Latinos, and then there was a very small group that were white. So I went to a very ethnic school, and so we had a lot of open, not racism, but we would use a lot of bigoted terms towards each other, but there wasn't any of the hate involved, if that makes sense. And so that was a very, very unique circumstance to have that happen in. And then when I walked out of that circumstance, it was very different, because obviously I'm not going to a school with all ethnic people. So now when I say something, it comes off very differently. So I had to kind of train myself to not be offensive. The problem I run into is not that I'm offensive, is that I'm inappropriate. I'll say things that I don't mean in an inappropriate way, and people will take it in an inappropriate way. Perfect example of this is I was doing Grease. This was years ago now. This was a long, long time ago. And we had an opening number, and we had to be in full like college gowns and like graduation gowns, and we were all standing, we sang like a choir. And then the curtain would close, and somebody would come out and say something for like 15 seconds, and then the curtains would open, and then the stars would all run on stage. and I was one of the stars of the show. I had about 15, I think it was 37 seconds to take off the gown, throw on my proper shoes and shirt, and then run on stage and sing my opening number, or my part of the opening number. And there was a girl, we all had our assigned partner that would help us strip down. And there was this girl that would help me. And so we would always be backstage, side by side, because she'd have to stand next to me because she'd have to help me undress. And not fully undress, but you know what I mean. And so we would always goof around backstage, and they had a set song pattern that they would play right before we would start our choir thing. And the second to last song was Earth Angel. And I would sing that to her, and she was like, well, she is like 3 or 4 years older than me. At the time I was like 23, so she was like 26, 27, so she was a much older woman. And I would sing it to her, and we would always joke around, and she'd hug me and whatever, and she'd help me undress, and I'd always have the ongoing joke that it would turn me on when she did that. And so we would always goof off. So we had our dress rehearsals, we had a bunch of shows, and then one of the nights her husband came. I think he came closing night. I want to say it was closing night, and we had our closing night party. So she was always helping me and whatever, and I would sing Earth Angel to her, and the joke was that I was madly in love with her. Well, because of my neurodivergence, I didn't understand that she didn't realize I was being sarcastic, that I was joking with her. She thought I was actually in love with her. So when I met her husband, I shook his hand, and I'm like, so you're my competition. I'm like, one day I'll steal her from you. He got really upset with me. Like, he didn't say anything to me. He kind of just smiled and walked away. And she had to calm him down because he was furious with me, like livid with me, because he thought I was hitting on his wife. Except one, she just wasn't somebody I was into. Two, I was making a joke. And three, I never pictured him being so insecure that he thought I would be trying to take his wife, because I was a dumbass who lived at home with his mom and had like a part-time job, and he was a guy that was like he's like an engineer or something. He's got like a beautiful job, a giant house, and it's like, dude, I'm not trying to steal your wife. But those were the kind of things that I would say or do that were inappropriate. I would do or say something that would make everybody else really uncomfortable, and I didn't mean to. And I just never understood why people would get uncomfortable. So I feel you that way. Most of the time, I don't say anything super offensive. But I tend to speak and not really understand how people are going to take it all the time. And sometimes it can be really hard, because sometimes I'm not trying to say anything mean or rude. Sometimes I'm literally just trying to say something. And it may not be something I find offensive. It might be something that I think is really benign, and they'll get really upset about it. Sometimes I don't mean it to be. John, how's it going, man? Dude, are you in Vietnam right now? Do you have the Quebecois accent, Dakota? Do you have the Quebecois accent? But yeah, so that's my big struggle, is I'll say things that I don't understand why people get so upset about it sometimes. Because to me, like, when I'm saying something, I'm being literal about it, right? Like, I'm trying to think of another example of where, like, I said something and people completely misconstrued it, and they would get really upset with me, and I never understood until now. But I can't think of anything at this moment that really stands out. Okay, I think I've picked everything up, so I guess we have to go down. Like, you don't have it anymore? Yeah, it's the Quebecois accent. I didn't realize the difference until I went to theater school, because I love accents. That there's something that I do that people find offensive that I don't mean in any offensive way at all, and I don't mean it. I'm not saying it like it's not offensive because it doesn't offend me. No, I totally get why it's offensive, and I totally get why people don't like it. but I don't understand why people don't understand why I like to do it. So one of my stims is doing accents, and I don't do accents to make fun of people. Like, I'm not sitting there going, huh, listen how this Indian guy talks, he sounds so stupid. It's not that at all. It's just, I like the ability to sound like other people sound. Not mimicking their voices, but like the way they pronounce words, if that makes sense. Wineand, thank you so much for the gamepad. I really appreciate that. How are you? So like, I love doing African accents, but not South African. I'm talking like the typical African accent that not typical, like the stereotypical African accent. Like if we're talking about somebody from like the Congo, because I can't do South African, because in my ear South African sounds almost like Australia mixed with British, and I can't do the Australian accent at all. Or I like the differences between the Irish and Scottish accent, although I can't do realistic ones of either. But I find them interesting, and I like them because when I do like a Scottish accent, I'm not doing it to mock what the stereotype of Scotland is. It's, I like the nuances in the language and the differences in like the cadences and the way that they make certain noises in their language, right? And so I love accents, and that's something that people get really upset with me about, because there are certain accents you can do that nobody bats an eye at. Like if I do a British accent, nobody really cares because it's not an accent that overall gets made fun of. But if I do like a Vietnamese accent, people find it very, very offensive, except I'm not doing it to make fun of a Vietnamese person. I'm doing it because to me, it's just another one of the accents that are out there, and I want to learn it because I like voiceover stuff. I like different accents. I like different ways to speak, lisps, and different ways to like even just the way you make an S. There are different ways to kind of place your tongue to make your S sound slightly different, which will make your whole voice sound slightly different. And so for me, those are the interesting things. But people get really offended about it, and I still don't understand how people can't understand the difference of using an accent to mock a race and using an accent because you genuinely like the study of accents and language, if that makes sense. But anyways, what I'm getting at is I never understood that I didn't know that there was a difference between the French accent and the Quebec French accent until I paid attention to it. And it's like night and day. And then I later learned that the French is like night and day. Like it's very different French. If you are a Quebecois person and go to France and speak French, they're going to have a very hard time understanding because a lot of the words used in Quebec are not the same words used in France. And I had no idea. So interesting. We have a redneck version of French. DM, how you doing, man? How are things going? Yeah, South African is a very, very complex accent. Very complex. I find Australian another very complex accent. I cannot do Australian for the life of me. I have tried. I will literally sit here listening to different Australian like YouTubers and stuff and try to say the words that they say, and I cannot get it to sound natural or even sound like a goofball Australian accent. Like, you know how there's like the cartoon accent for every country? Because like Canadians, they all think we talk like this, eh? And there are some Canadians that talk this way, but it's definitely not all of Canada. And they all think we say a boot, but we don't say a boot. Actually, it's really common here to say a boat, which a lot of Canadians don't realize they say a boat. They hear about. They can't tell that they're saying a boat. But there's like the goofball accent. I can't even do a goofball Australian accent. I can't. For some reason, the Australian accent just doesn't fit in my brain. I can make the individual noises, because one thing with accents, if you don't know anything about accents, one thing about accents is there are different ways to achieve the same sound, and there are certain sounds that languages don't make that you then have to implement into English for it to sound like the accent. And so like with British, there's that the R. The R is very complicated in British English because sometimes they do say and sometimes they don't. And so you have to learn kind of when to balance it to make it sound natural. And that's when you can kind of call out somebody who isn't a British accent, who doesn't have a real British accent, because they'll sometimes bring in one of those hard R's when there isn't a hard R there, or they'll soften the ah all the time, and it's very obvious that it's not naturally the way that British people will do it. And so and Scottish, I can do a stereotypical cartoony Scottish for a few seconds at a time. I can't do it long term, and there's a lot of words I can't do. The way that I differentiate between Scottish and Irish is that Scottish I find to be a much harsher accent, whereas Irish seems to be a much not softer, but they're an example would be something like the T. The Scottish T in my mind is a much harsher T, and there's a lot of glottal T's in the Scottish accent, like Scottish instead of Scottish, whereas the Irish, the T's are very soft, and they're almost at like where your gums, your mouth, your palate meets your teeth, but not on the teeth, it's just slightly back, and that T will make the difference versus a Scot, which is a much harder sound. And then you add the R's, right? The Scottish R's are softer, or the Irish R's are softer. Scottish R's, they can roll quite a bit, so there's like a harsher sound, and those are like the breakdowns you get in language. That's what I find super interesting about accents. It's like, for me, the Chinese accent is another one that I can't get. I just cannot do a Chinese accent. But then there's like the little nuances between like a Japanese accent and a Korean accent and a Vietnamese accent, and it's like those differences to me are so interesting, because there's a very slight difference in the way you attack certain letters, but it makes a totally different accent based on just these slight differences. I find it so fascinating. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent here. I just find accents so fascinating, and people get so upset when I do them because they think I'm doing it in like a mocking way. But for me, it's like, no, it's a challenge to do that accent, and I want to do it properly, and I find it so entertaining. Yes, and that's one of the things, Night Owl, that I can hear the differences when I hear different people from different areas speaking, and there are some that I cannot for the life of me understand. There are some that I know have a very Scots sounding accent and is just as unintelligible to me as like one of those deep Scots way of speaking, and I can't tell the difference between both of them, and I can't understand either of them. And when it comes to like the British accent, yeah, there's like the Cockney style, and there's, but I don't know what they're all called, because I don't know Britain as a whole. I don't know what it's all divided into, or the UK. That's another thing I actually don't know the difference of. I don't understand the difference between England, UK, and Britain. I don't understand what the differences are between the three, if there are any, or if that's just like three different ways to call the same place. But I don't know the layout, so I don't know what the places are called, but I do hear the differences. And like the Eliza Doolittle Cockney accent, I can't do that. I sound like a Canadian doing a Cockney accent. I can't do those very well. But I can do like the stereotypical standard British accent. And I do it okay. If I speak to a Brit, they can hear it and they can tell it's not real. When I was in theater school, actually, we all got to have a mentor in school, and my mentor was from the UK, and he had the very soft, typical British accent that you see on TV and in movies and stuff. And his was very much like the suave style of talking, and he would sit with me and he would ask me to speak in a British accent, and he would practice his Canadian accent or Americanized accent with me, and we would like give each other pointers, and by the end he thought I did a very good British accent. It's been 10 plus years. My British accent now would be horrible, but I know with some practice I could get back into it. But I find accents just so interesting. Okay, so the UK is the combination of all those different places. Okay. England is just England. Great Britain is England, Scotland, and Wales. Okay. See, that's what I don't know, and it's always hard for me when I try to like address, especially you, because I'm like, do I say Britain, or do I say the UK, or do I say England? Like, what do I say when I'm referencing where you're from? We were in the UK, a lady came sit with us outside and asked us if we were Americans. Yeah, it's also very interesting, and it's the same thing with like the British accent, right? A lot of places cannot hear the difference. In the different accents. Hold on. Ow. Stupid reload. There's so many of them. Hold on. I'm gonna finish my thought in a second. I should probably play my game when I'm talking. It's interesting when, even if you speak the same language, if it's not your native language, you may not... Sorry if it's so loud, everybody. If you speak a language but it's not your native tongue, you will not have an easy time hearing the different accents in that language. So it's almost hard for people to tell. Like, I know my mom, and now she can, but for a long time in my life, she couldn't hear when somebody was Canadian or American or British. She couldn't hear the differences in English. She just heard English. She just figured some people were harder for her to understand, but she couldn't hear the differences within the dialects and in the way the words were pronounced. And so that was really hard for her. Just like English-speaking people can't tell the difference when a non-native English speaker is speaking. They can't hear the differences. Like, if they hear a Cuban person speaking English and a Mexican person speaking English and somebody from El Salvador speaking English, they don't hear the differences. Despite all three of them being Latin countries and all three of them speaking English, there are differences within the accents themselves. And we can hear them, but other people can't. And it has to do with just picking up those little nuances in the way words are pronounced or the inflections you use. My guess, Wewin, is going to be that they heard you were speaking English with an accent and figured you must be American, because Americans would more than likely have somebody who's from another country learn English there, if that makes sense. Like, you're more likely to have an English speaker with a thick accent from America than you are an English speaker with a thick accent from the UK. Obviously that's not always the case, but it's just an easier leap to kind of jump to that. That's my guess anyway, but who knows? If they're English, you'll answer all of them. DM, like, are you asking if my mom's first generation? Like, I was born there. So, like, my mom and my dad and myself are all from there. So once you live here for a while, there's almost like a neutral Spanish accent for the most part. It's almost like the English accent. There's a generic English accent, not English British. I mean English like American accent. Because like if you go to the States and you're in like Oklahoma, they're gonna speak one way, but then you're in New Orleans, they speak a different way, and then you're in Texas, they speak a different way. But there's like the generic English that you see in movies that is like very neutral, I guess. There's a name that they have for it, but there's like the neutral English accent. And then there's, you know, the Texan accent. So then, you know, they're from Texas. Or there's like the New Orleans style accent. So like there are accents on top of the general English that we have to throw on when we're acting. So it's the same with Spanish. There's like a general Spanish accent that kind of takes place after a while. In the States, it's more Mexicanized. Here we have a lot more variety in the type of Latinos that are around here. So ours is a lot more neutral. But even within that, there are words that still completely trip us up. The big one for me is the way we use you. So if you're from a country that doesn't speak any kind of Spanish at all, in Spanish, we have a formal way of addressing people and an informal way of addressing people. And in like the traditional Spanish, it's based on hierarchy. It's based on respect levels. It's based on like societal standards, right? So like if I'm speaking to my mom, I speak with like the more casual way because she's my mom. But if I'm speaking to like my dad's cousin, I'm going to speak much more formal because she didn't raise me. We don't have that bond, and I have to have an air of respect with her. And so where it gets really weird is certain countries completely ignore that. And other countries actually see it as the reverse. They see as people that use the more formal way as like stuck up, as conceited, as almost like you're speaking down to somebody because you're showing that you're better than them because you're using proper terminology. And so it gets really complicated because depending on where the person's from, they might get offended when you speak to them in that way. So for me, I don't like strangers speaking to me without that formal address. But then there are people that get offended if I speak to them with the formal address. I had a girl that I was training recently, and she would speak to me informally, and I was speaking to her formally. And so I don't know where she's from, but I'm pretty sure for them, that's just the way they speak. They don't use the formal you, whereas I was using the formal you. And you could tell every time I used it, she felt kind of off-put by it. And the reverse was happening to me. Whereas when she was speaking to me that way, it felt too casual. So it felt almost like flirtatious in the way she was talking to me. She wasn't being flirtatious, but it had that vibe to it because there was no formality. That's where it gets so complicated because so many countries are all in one spot and we all have our own way of saying things. There were many times where I was, especially Colombian Spanish, where they would say things to me and there are certain words that they use in Colombia to mean one thing and we use them as a very vulgar thing. And so when I had that said to me the first time, I went beet red. And it was basically I was doing a dance number with a girl and her mom was choreographing us. And she just meant, I want you to grab her. But the word she used in my country means to screw her. And so she's like, yeah, and I want you to do this and this. And then when you get a chance, just screw her. And I went, what? And I went beet red because I had never heard that word used in the way she said it. I had always used it, or not used it, but I had always heard it as to screw, not to grab. And she didn't understand why I was so embarrassed. And then it clicked to her and she goes, oh my God. She goes, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from El Salvador. She goes, use it to grab her. I was like, oh, okay. And that's when it clicked that they use that word differently than I do. So it can be very hard because sometimes they'll say something that they don't mean and it genuinely means something very offensive to me. It's so complicated. It's interesting. Yeah, and I know that's another big one for sure, is a lot of people who don't speak English natively and didn't learn it through an education system. They learn it based on Americanized English because that's the overall English that you see everywhere. Yeah, DM, and that's a big one. Is like for me, I can switch between languages without thinking. I can literally go from Spanish to English, back to Spanish, no problem. I can literally, I'll give you an example. Yo puedo estar hablando en español ahorita and I could turn around and speak English immediately, hablando de las luces si quiero, y puedo darme la vuelta y hablar of the microphone if I want to, and I don't really get chopped up speaking from one thing to another, jumping back and forth. My mom cannot do that. She has to stop and almost like flip a switch in her brain to start speaking in English. And now that she's getting older, she doesn't flip the switch anymore as easily. And so there are many times where she's speaking to us in English because Alana only speaks English. She'll speak to us in English. She'll stop and she'll listen to what we have to say, and then she'll respond in Spanish and just doesn't grasp that she's not speaking in English. And so she has almost like a weird thing where sometimes she's watching a movie in Spanish and she goes, oh my God, my English is really good right now. And she's not realizing she's not listening in English, she's listening in Spanish. But her brain just hasn't grasped because she's not used to not having to think about switching back and forth. Languages are interesting, and the way brains work around languages is interesting. And I think that's a big part of why I like accents so much, because to me, it's very interesting to know that certain cultures don't use certain sounds. And so when they're speaking English, because English is the main language that I'm going to work on with accents, when they're speaking English, those sounds don't make sense to them, or they don't hear the difference in the sound. And for me, it's so interesting to be able to work with that theory while I'm pronouncing words. My mom, again, bird. My mom she does not hear the difference between bird, beer, and beard. She can't hear the difference. She has no idea what we reference. She only grasps it based on the context of the conversation. But she'll sit there and she goes, okay, I know they're spelled different and I know they mean different things. She goes, but how do you know the difference between Bert and Bert and Bert? I'm like, there's a big difference, Mom. I'm like, there's bird, there's beard, and then there's beer. And she doesn't hear it. Does not hear it at all. So for me, those are the things that are really interesting about accents. Or like trying to place the sound somewhere in your mouth that you don't naturally place it. You know, like when it comes to like an Indian accent, there's a lot of like almost like I'm about to roll my R at all times with almost everything that I say to add a bit more of that sound to my voice, which then changes my whole voice. Or like if I'm going for more of like a Vietnamese accent, it's further back, it's more glottal, and there's a lot more stopping before finishing the sound, because the Vietnamese language in general has more of that style of sound. Those are the things that I find super, super interesting about accents. That's why I love accents, but I can't practice them because people get really offended, because overall people tend to use accents to mock people for not being able to speak. And so it's like, and the neurodivergent part of me, again, I understand how it's offensive and I understand how it's been used to be offensive. I don't understand how people don't see that that's not what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? Or like for English speakers, I don't grasp how an English speaker doesn't hear the difference between a hard rolled R and a soft rolled R. Like my last name is Paredes, and I'll either get Paredes, where like they roll that R in a really stiff way, or I'll get Paredes, and they don't understand that it's neither of those, and they just don't hear the difference between those rolled R's. And those are like that's what I find interesting in language, is the inability to do that little difference. The rolled French R is very different than the rolled Spanish R. And a lot of people who don't natively speak French or natively speak Spanish can't tell the difference. And so they'll roll their R's for French, but they'll roll them the way you roll them for Spanish, because at least in this part of the world, Spanish is a lot more common than French is. And so you get a lot of people, like I think the word is today in French is what it means. But a lot of people around here who don't speak French naturally will say aujourd'hui, and they'll roll their R for that. But the French roll their R's in the back, and we roll our R's in the front. So instead of aujourd'hui, it's more aujourd'hui. It's back here. But people who don't speak the language can't differentiate, and they can't tell. They just know it's a rolled R. Or like, here's one that actually is a bigoted accent when people are doing it most of the time. is having the lisp for a man who is gay. And people who don't have any understanding of language, they lisp like this, and they think gay guys talk like this. It's like that's not what that lisp is, and it's not really a lisp. It's a softening of the S, because there's a difference between S and S. I'm still making an S sound, but just by changing my S, all of a sudden the way I speak sounds very different versus S. And then that S can also turn into this S. And this is a totally different type of lisp, but it's still a lisp that changes the way I speak, because now my S is totally different. But there is this kind of lisp, right? You see cartoon characters talk this way, and they're all different ways of pronouncing the S that are slightly different, but you get somebody who's a bigot and an idiot and then just assumes that's what the lisp is. It's the lisp. It's like, that's not, there's so many nuances to it without making fun of it. And to me, that's the interesting part, is finding those little things. And obviously there are times where you go above and beyond, because that's the point of it, is to go above and beyond to the extreme where it's hilarious. When I did Matilda, this is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll play a little bit longer. When I did Matilda, my character's name was Rodolfo. He was supposed to be this Italian, suave, debonair dancer. And then the whole time I talk like this, very fake Italian accent. No Italian really talk this way, but I did all this way. And then at one point, the one character says something to me, and my response in the lines is supposed to be, what? Now, I could have literally said, what? But the point of me going to that extreme Italian accent, because I can't do a good Italian accent, the point of going to the extreme is because all of them did like the more Cockney style British accent. So the whole time I'm talking like this, and then all of a sudden she says something, and I go, what? Oh, I mean, I don't know what you mean. And it's like, I went from that Italian cartoon accent to like a really blatant Cockney accent back to the Italian accent to give it that, oh, he's not actually speaking with an Italian accent naturally. He's faking it for the whole, oh, he's Italian, suave, and debonair, because he's fake. And so it's like, in those moments, yeah, I go above and beyond and make it super cartoony and super fake, because the whole point of it is the character is super cartoony and super fake, and the accent isn't really his accent. And so it's like, those little details are where, that's where things get a little bit shady, and I can totally get why people get upset. But that's why I like studying them, because that's where it gets interesting, because I choose to do it in a way that's not realistic on purpose. Yeah, DM, and that happens here when it comes to like switching back to natural languages. Here, there's not a lot of people that speak Spanish. You're not going to find Spanish anywhere here except for within your own community. And the problem that we have here with the Spanish community, the Latino community, is they kind of live in their own bubble. They don't really reach out from there. So like the Latino people that all came here around the same time all hang out together. So they never learn to speak proper English. They never, they get their job that they get here, and then they never move forward from there because they're afraid to kind of step out of that bubble, that comfort zone. And so, there was a neighborhood, my hometown, there was a neighborhood that all the Latino people lived there. And as soon as I would say I was Latino, people would be like, oh, so you live there? And it's like, no, I actually live somewhere else. I live in a neighborhood that's, downtown slums. And they couldn't comprehend that we didn't live there, and that we didn't work at the same place that almost all of them worked at, and we didn't hang out with them all the time. But then the downside is they never learned to speak good English. They never learned to communicate with people outside. So then when they go to the store, they still struggle. 25 years living in the country, and they still struggle to speak the language because they never immersed themselves in speaking only English. And so it's like, it's almost a detriment to kind of fall back into their language. My sister's husband came here in his late 30s. He was about my age when he came here, and didn't speak a word of English when he moved here. And now he speaks English. He's got a thick accent, but he speaks fluent English. He's been here for, I'm going to say about 8 years, maybe 10, something like that. And he speaks fluent English. He's the manager at his job now. He's a supervisor. He's the head guy. He works in construction. He's the head guy. And he commands a bunch of guys in perfect English. But he literally came here and married my sister, who doesn't really speak a lot of Spanish at home. and worked with a bunch of guys who only spoke English. He was forced to speak English, so he got good at it. But here, there's no choice, right? There's not that choice of going somewhere and saying, I don't speak English, and then having them break into the language with you, because Canada, although we're very multicultural, and it came to a shock to me because our education system's okay, but it's not great. I didn't realize how many languages people in Europe are not just exposed to, but they actually can communicate in. Because like my first group of viewers were all German, and they all spoke English, and a lot of them spoke Spanish, and I was blown away by that. And so like the fact that they were native German speakers who were from Germany watching me speak in English, yet were still messaging me in Spanish, was mind-boggling to me. Because here, if you don't speak English, you're not going to talk to anybody. And so there's no chance to be able to speak in a different language. Yeah, DM. Barcelona in almost all other Spanish except for Spain Spanish is not said with the lisp. Spain is pretty much the only place that uses that lisp sound. And even for me, it's hard sometimes to understand Spanish from Spain because it's the same as English from England. There are words that they use that we know that that's what the rule is, but we don't really use it that way. Example, I can say, all right, I'm going to play this while Alana's working, or I'm going to play this while you work. And in England, it's normal and it's proper to say, I'm going to play this whilst you work. We know whilst is the proper word to use, but none of us use it. And so hearing whilst sticks out. When I hear it, every time I hear it, it really sticks out to me. Because it's not used very often. And so for Spanish with Spain, it's like that for me. I get caught up on all the rules, and I have a very hard time understanding Spanish from Spain easily because, one, the language is different enough and not common enough here that there are many words that they use that I am not accustomed to at all. But then they use a lot of rules that we don't use that I'm also not accustomed to. The double L. In Spanish, pretty much everywhere else, we pronounce it like a Y. So the word street is calle. And in Spain, and I want to say Argentina, there's a couple of other places around here that also say it this way, but it's not as common, is calle. We don't say calle, we say calle. And so when I hear that, it sounds very, like it sticks out in my ear. But once they start speaking quickly and they have a bunch of those j sounds and th sounds, I get completely lost. I'm like, I can't follow what you're saying because it's just, it doesn't fully match with what I am used to. Whom is another one. There are very specific times we use whom, very few and far between. The only one that really sticks in my mind right now is to whom it may concern. But outside of that, I almost never use whom. And if I do, it's when I'm trying to sound intelligent while speaking. You know, when you're trying to sound very formal and very intelligent, that's the only time. Whereas I find people who speak from England, who speak English, their natural way of speaking is what we use to sound formal. It's really interesting to hear stuff like that. Because it's not something that we really consider overall. And that also comes into the play of like why whenever they try to show a very elegant or intelligent character, they almost always have a British accent because British sounds so elegant and beautiful. And it's like, no, it's because the people who speak that generic British accent, in that generic British accent, are speaking the way they normally speak. And they're using the rules that we use when we try to sound smart. And so we automatically just associate them with intelligence when they speak in the way that just the average person speaks. That's cool, we win. See, and stuff like that. Nope. What people here try to hold on to is things like Italians and Latinos and Portuguese people. They try to communicate together because our languages are just close enough that we can kind of get the gist of what we're trying to say to each other. But with Italian, for me anyways, it's very, very specific. There are... Oh my god. I'm so excited to see these babies. These babies are some of the worst enemies in this game. There are certain dialects of Italian that I can't even pick up one word. And then there are certain dialects of Italian that I can understand more than half of what they're saying. And that's enough for me to be able to get what they're trying to get to me. It's almost like the formal Italian, what would be considered like the British, neutral British accent. It's almost like the comparison of that, because there are certain English accents that I struggle to understand fully what they're saying, especially, you know, the more ones closer to Scotland, Ireland, the ones that are more border languages, they tend to be harsher accents, so they're harder for me to follow. With Italian, same thing. There are certain Italian dialects that I just no clue what they're saying, and then there are certain ones that I'm like, yep, I can understand enough. And Portuguese even more so. There are certain Portuguese dialects that I can, like, it sounds to me like they're talking Spanish with an accent or almost like baby talk. Man, languages are just so interesting. That's why I love accents. I wish bigots wouldn't have ruined accents, because I love it. I love it so much. I find it so interesting. Oh, I didn't even notice his head blew up. Gross. Or like, I love watching somebody who speaks in a different language or a different I love somebody who speaks a different, like, has a different accent speaking in a... Hey, we win! Happy Prime Day! Double sound. Double sound, I apologize. Thank you, we win, I appreciate that. That's really kind of you. Thank you, we win. But yeah, like, I love watching people who speak in a different accent, speaking with the American accent, especially when you can't tell. There are some that you can blatantly tell, just like there are certain actors that do British accents that you can just tell they can't. But there are some that blew me away when I find out that they didn't have an American accent naturally. Like the guys from Walking Dead. That to me was a shock. Their accents to me didn't sound natural. They weren't accents that I had heard when I really think about it. It wasn't an accent that I'm like, oh yeah, that's this. It was just natural, but I couldn't pinpoint where it was from. And it sounded off, but not in a way that made me think it was an accent. Just off in a way of like, huh, they speak differently. Like the guy who played Morgan, the guy from the very beginning of the show with the son Dwayne, the way he speaks, it's not, at least to my ear, it's not any American accent. But it didn't sound like somebody putting on an accent. It just sounded like somebody who may have had like a mix of languages in their household and grew up in the States and just kind of had that influence in the way he spoke. I love that kind of stuff. Or like Hugh Laurie. I was introduced to Hugh Laurie through House. And then when I went to theater school and they put Hugh Laurie on, I don't remember what the show is called. The one where he's with Rowan Atkinson. It's really, really popular in the UK. And it's like they're rich guys in a castle. And I saw him come on screen and he had a British accent. Blackadder, that's the one. And he had a British accent. I was floored. I had no idea that his American accent was fake. That to me is, I love seeing that. And even when their accent isn't great, but just seeing them kind of stick to it in a believable enough way, is awesome. Or even when it's a bad accent, but hearing the technical part of it, like, okay, Leonardo DiCaprio did a Jamaican accent in the movie. Not a great Jamaican accent, but hearing the technicalities of him getting out so many words and saying them the way he said them, and trying to get his mouth to move that quickly and naturally, as in like you couldn't tell that he was stopping to like, I have to say it this way. It was just coming out, even though not accurate. That to me, I find that so interesting to listen to actors do that. And then I try to see what they're doing, because I know that that's not the way they talk, and see how I can mimic those noises to see if I can get that accent going, because it's different to hear a non-Jamaican person put on a Jamaican accent versus a Jamaican person speak with a Jamaican accent, because the way they speak, that's just the way that they speak. And so you can't dissect it as easily as you can with somebody who doesn't speak that way, and then you hear them speak that way because you can hear the difference in the way they say words. And so it's like, I find that really intriguing to watch. I haven't seen the one with Stephen Fry, but to me it's astonishing to hear some of these American accents and how well they are done, because there are some terrible American accents out there. Just the way that I'm sure people in the UK, you know, find it hysterical listening to Americans, I'm referencing Canadians and Americans, listen to Americans do a British accent, and it's just like, oh my god, it's so bad. You actually think that's what we sound like? Because it's the same for us. In the same vein, I'm sure there are American accents that you hear that you go, no, that sounds accurate, and when we go, no, it doesn't, and you have to almost strain to hear why it doesn't sound right. It's the same for me with British accents. There are certain British accents that I've heard other people go, oh my god, their British accent was horrible, and I'm listening to it and going, I don't understand why it was horrible. Always so interesting. Ah! Rick's was good. And Rick's was a Southern American accent, but it wasn't the cartoony, you know, stereotypical Southern accent. It wasn't this. It was just his accent. Like, that was, like, in my opinion, a masterclass in doing a Southern American accent, because it was there, but it wasn't in your face, and it was very, very faint. The way that a lot of people speak in the States, because the typical Southern accent that everybody thinks is a very small group in the big picture. It's a very small group of Americans that speak that way. The vast majority of people don't speak that way. I think the biggest culture shock for me was when I went to Texas as a kid, a teenager, whatever. I was like 14, 15 years old, and I went to Texas, and I was aware of accents at this point. I was enjoying like learning accents and stuff at this point. And I went to Texas and didn't hear that Southern drawl. And I was disheartened, because I was expecting that Southern, like, you know, y'all come back now, you hear? Like, you know, that kind of cartoony sound. And they didn't talk that way. There was some of it there, but it wasn't really there. And then I went to a different state, which I never pictured with that accent. All of a sudden, they had the cartoony accent, and I was blown away. But a lot of people that have that Southern accent, it's very minimal. And the guy who played Lincoln or whatever his name is, he did that perfect balance of the accents there, but just barely, while still not having any British accent on top of it all. So well done. So well done. Yeah, he turned into Foghorn Leghorn, exactly. And like, I'm sure when you hear British accents, it's very much like, what did you turn into, the royalty? Like the royal couple all of a sudden when you're speaking British, and it's very, very clean, and that's not what all British people talk like. And it's or like, I know I say talk wrong when I do the British accent, because British people don't say talk, but I don't know what they do, and so I instinctually fall into that phrasing. Yeah, and there are, don't get me wrong, when there are people that do talk that way. It's just not as common as the rest of the world thinks. Just like the Canadian accent, it's not as common as people think it is. People genuinely think they're going to come to Canada and they're going to hear A every 5 seconds, or that we have that like sing-songy way of talking. But in Ontario, we definitely don't have it as prominently as other places do. There still are people like that, and it's really obvious to us when we watch videos, interviews of Canadians. It's much more obvious. But when you talk to people face to face, it's not as evident. But you go to the islands and it's super hard to understand them, especially when you go to like Newfoundland. Newfoundland has almost an Irish draping over the Canadian accent. People from Newfoundland, I can't understand them. I have a very hard time understanding people from Newfoundland, and the rest of the world gets very surprised when they find out it's not Newfoundland, that it's Newfoundland. And I came to this conclusion recently, and people from Australia might get mad at me for this. I don't know if Liam's still here, but there's this big thing about Melbourne, that people get very upset when non-Australians say Melbourne, right? And they say it's pronounced Melbourne. Except if you really break it down, only because I like accents so much, if you really break it down, Melbourne is the way somebody from Australia would say Melbourne, because of the way they pronounce their words in general. Their R's are very short and very almost British, with like the softness of it. And so Australians don't pronounce the R the way the rest of the world would pronounce the R, or the Americanized world would pronounce the R. And so of course they say Melbourne. But in my mind, what I hear is saying the word with an accent and not saying the word properly anymore. That's almost like me saying, I'm gonna go visit the United Kingdom. Nobody corrects people and go, it's not United Kingdom, it's United Kingdom. Nobody says that, right? And so for me, it's now that's what I hear every time somebody goes, it's not Melbourne, it's Melbourne. Well, but why is it Melbourne and not United Kingdom? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is just me nitpicking. I'm not saying that this is how it should be or whatever, or they're wrong. It's just that's what my brain goes to now. That's where I stick to now. I never watched Buffy. I wish I did. You're Ontarian? I'm Ontarian too. Newfoundland is really, it's a really strange mix. But there's a lot of Irish influence, but not Irish, the Irish accent we hear. Irish, like the people who like still speak, there's Gaelic and there's another one. But like that still speak the native tongue. And they have the much thicker accent. There's a lot of influence from that in Newfoundland. It's really interesting when you start to really break down the way they speak, but it makes sense because that's where the voyagers from there would have landed. And there are a lot of people that come from Ireland and Scotland and they landed there and they kind of just stayed there. Whereas like here we have more of the British influence because the Brits landed around here. And then Quebec has the French because the French landed around there. So it's like there's all these influences in history that have kind of influenced the way we speak now. Because if you go to like Newfoundland and then you go to PEI, they both have a very Canadian sing-songy way of speaking, but they're both very different from each other, which is weird because they're so close and they're both small islands. So you would picture them being almost exactly the same. Because if you go to Manitoba and Ontario, it's close enough that it's hard to tell just by the way they speak. But PEI or New Brunswick and Newfoundland still is different than them. It's so interesting. But it's something that Canadians would hear and not anybody else. Because Americans hear that and they just hear Canadian accent. And yeah, there's definitely hundreds of dialects there. There are different in the UK tongue clicks, and there are different, not just dialects, but even just the pattern that the language follows is different, because they might pronounce the words exactly the same, but just in the way their voice goes up and down can make a big difference. One of the things I learned in theater school, not that I learned it from theater school, I learned it while I was in theater school because I experienced it, was my whole class had a very hard time not having an upwards inflection in the way they speak. Because Ontarians have a very hard time not going up when they finish their sentence. It's almost like they have a question at the end of everything they say. And we had a whole class, an hour and a half class, where we had to sit there and literally say our name and our age without going up at the end. So literally, my name is Luis and I'm 34 years old. And the amount of people that were, my name is Luis and I'm 34 years old, and they couldn't comprehend that they were going up at the end. And I still went up the first time when my name is Luis. I still kind of go up a bit. And it's interesting because those little things that we don't hear ourselves doing, but other people do. But within Canada, we have such a range of accents and the way we speak English. But when you ask anybody outside of Canada, they only hear one generic way of us speaking, and they don't realize that we all have very different ways of speaking. But Ontario, especially the southern part of Ontario, because a lot of people not in Canada don't realize how big Ontario is, but the southern part of Ontario is very Americanized. We are very, very Americanized, so we're influenced a lot more. Like, I grew up and half of my TV channels were from the States. I had American commercials. I know of American local celebrities that people outside of that state don't expect, or the people outside of that state have never heard of, but I've heard of them because I was close enough to the border that I picked up the American channels. It was always really strange for me. But we're very Americanized, so we're almost in a special bubble. So when people speak to Ontarians, especially ones from around like the Toronto area, there's a harder time for them to hear the Canadian accent as easily because we're so influenced by Americans here. Okay, I gotta stop soon. I've been on a whole tangent. But that being said, even here in Ontario, just a few hours up and you get a totally different accent. One of my ex-girlfriends, her family is from a place called Timmins, which from where I grew up was about 5 hours away. And her dad has a very unique accent. It's almost Quebec French, but it's not quite. But it has a lot more of that Canadian accent. I'm pretty sure a lot of the world knows Russell Peters, and Russell Peters used to have a joke about it, and her dad has that accent where he would say Canadians sound like donkeys when they swear, because they can't just say, Jesus Christ, look what happened. They have a very, Jesus Christ. And her dad spoke exactly like that. He would always swear like that. He'd be like, for fuck's sakes, did you catch the jugs on that one? That's how he talked. And so he was very much Canadian in his accent, in the stereotypical Canadian accent. But he was from a place called Timmins, which is a very tiny place in the middle of nowhere. Uh-oh. Oh, it's water. I thought it was a baby. That's about all my knowledge of Ontario. Toronto is pretty much, Toronto and Niagara Falls are pretty much like the only places people go to when they come to Ontario, because Niagara Falls is like the Las Vegas of Canada. You know, it's where you come to get married quickly. It's where you come and gamble. There's casinos everywhere. That's where I'm from right now. I'm not from here. I live here now. And so like this is like the Las Vegas of Canada. Toronto is like the New York of Canada. It's where we have like our big theaters. It's where we have a lot of like movies being filmed. Vancouver is very much like the Hollywood of Canada, because a lot of the TV shows are all done in Vancouver. Movies overall are done in Vancouver. It's very, very common to see stuff being done in Vancouver. But Ontario, Toronto is like the New York of Canada. And funny enough, Hamilton is my hometown. That's where I'm from. There's one of the most terrible YouTubers on the planet is from there. And I hate knowing that she is from my hometown. And one of my friends, used to be my friend, I had to block her eventually because she was her makeup artist and they were friends. And a bunch of my friends went to high school with her. We're the same age or like a year apart. And so we hung out with, we didn't hang out with the same groups, but like we had overlapping friends. And that disgusts me, knowing that I was connected in 2 layers, but connected to somebody as disgusting as this person. And that my town is known for that. But mind you, they did a survey a few years back, and Hamilton, Ontario is one of the most hate crime filled cities in Canada. I think there was one year where it was the highest hate crime rate in all of Canada. Oh, I thought I grabbed it. I guess not. I wasn't paying attention. I was too busy talking.
What's your status?
I found a shock pad I can use on the barricade. I'm heading back there now.
Watch the bolt.
You had German channels?
Not losing anyone else.
So we almost always had cable growing up. And with our cable, almost all of our cable packages we had came with a few American channels. Like we had like 25 channels, 30 channels maybe, and at least 15 of them were American. So it was always weird for me. There was an age there where it was really weird for me because I didn't realize that like Fox was American. I knew that it was American because like they talked about Buffalo and stuff. I got Buffalo's channels, and so like I knew that Buffalo wasn't in Canada, but it didn't occur to me that Fox was an American channel. I just thought Fox was a universal channel. Like everybody had Fox, and we had Fox, and not Fox the way it is now. Fox was here. It was just a channel where just shows were on. It wasn't like what it is now, where it's all propaganda and crap. That was where like you would watch that 70s show, and you'd watch The Simpsons, and South Park would be on Fox. And so for me, Fox was like a universal channel, and they would just put on American news at a certain hour. I didn't realize that it was an American channel with American content that we were watching. I had no idea. And then later I found out that we only had very few Canadian channels with Canadian content. But, you know, I grew up right by the border, so there was a lot of American influence here. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. Because, like, even being Canadian, and wanting to be an actor in Canada, before I went to theater school, and now after I've been out of theater school for so long, I can't name Canadian actors to save my life. Like, local Canadian actors, anyways. Or, like, current Canadian actors that aren't, like, Hollywood-based. I knew a few of them, and I only knew of them because of theater school, because we had to study Canadian actors. But Canada does not support the arts at all, and they don't support our artists, which is sad. All right, DM, thank you for hanging out. I appreciate you being here. Sorry I was just blabbing on and on and on. Because I've been streaming, because I've been up all day, I have myself an adult beverage as I'm streaming. But then that makes me forget to like actually pay attention to chat, and I just kind of go off on tangents. I'm going to try not having one next time I stream nighttime. See if it does any difference to my my chattiness. Maybe I can control it a bit more. Yeah. Yeah, Evangeline Lilly is Canadian. She was actually somebody that I was... I'm ashamed to say she's Canadian. And I have a hard time watching her now. She's an anti-vax crazy nutbag. She's a conspiracy theorist, all this garbage. But it's hard for me because I'm watching Lost right now. I'm literally on the last 20 minutes of the series. Like, it's the end, it's the conclusion now. And she's supposed to play that character that you're supposed to fall in love with, and she's supposed to be so misunderstood and innocent while having been a guilty person. And you're supposed to love her by the end of it. Like, you're supposed to feel that love towards her. And the whole time I look at her, I'm just like, you're a moron Karen. I can't get past that now. I hate it. I hate it. Yeah, she was posting a bunch of stuff all over Twitter. You know, all the ivermectin, all that crap. I had a stupid American comment on one of my tweets. I've got like 200 followers on Twitter, and an American commented on one of my tweets where I was being sarcastic. I was poking fun of those people, but I was pointing out that I had this stuff and it didn't work on my acne because I'm taking ivermectin for my face. And like, he tried to make it sound like I was being stupid by saying, well, Paxlovid doesn't work for acne. What do you think, that's a conspiracy too? And it's like, dude, ivermectin is meant to treat this. Like, that's what it's made for. It's not made for COVID. And that was my joke is, you know, everybody says it works for COVID. It didn't even work for my acne. This thing's garbage. Like, it was sarcasm. And he was thinking I was being serious, that like I took it because it's a cure-all and it didn't work, and that's how I was dismissing it as a COVID treatment. It's like, no, dude, it's the opposite. I'm dismissing it as an acne treatment. But he got so mad. I was like, where the hell did you find my comment from? Like, I've got no followers. What are you so mad about? What are you so mad about? I'm talking about my acne, man. But yeah, Anna Paquin, I can't remember. She might be. William Shatner is, Justin Bieber. Like, there's a lot of Ryan Gosling, Ryan Reynolds. Actually, Ryan Gosling, Alana's best friend, is related to him. And I don't think Alana's ever had a chance to meet him, but she's met his family, like his direct family. But yeah, he's from Alana's hometown, and there's a lot of Canadian actors that are in Hollywood. The downside is Americans support the arts more than Canadians do, and so Canadians, to make it, have to make it in the States, which really sucks. You know what? I'm gonna find a safe spot. I'm gonna save, and then I'm gonna call it quits here. There's a safe spot. But like almost all Canadians, their mentality as actors. Okay. This is 336. Okay, so this one. All right, whatever. That's all we're sticking to. Canadians have the not the mentality. It's the government has basically forced us to have the goal of, if you want to make it as an actor, you're gonna move to the States. Like, that's what you want to do, is become an American actor, because here they don't support us. It's so bad. Let me go to the just chatting screen. There's a few people watching on TikTok, so I'm not going to cut off TikTok. I'll just keep talking on TikTok. But there's this whole idea in our acting world here in Canada that if you want to make it, you want to move to the States, and that's what your goal is long term, and that you're not going to do anything here. And it's to the point, it's so bad that when you audition for Canadian productions in Canadian theaters, they only have a set amount of spots for Canadian actors, and then the rest of the cast is open to everybody, which basically translates to all Americans. And the ratio is something like 20%, something stupid like that, where like only 20% of actors are Canadian and the rest are American. There was one show that one of my friends did. He's in a bunch of commercials. He's actually in a McCain commercial right now. I don't know if it's only a Canadian thing. I don't even know if McCain is just Canadian. But he's in a commercial. He's been in a few commercials. He's been in that TV show Mayday, air crash disasters. He was in one of those shows too. He was a pilot in that one. Anyways, he's a friend of mine who's done a bunch of shows and stuff, and he's a big theater actor. And he did a show, and he was the only Canadian actor in the whole cast. And the cast was like 25 actors, and he was the only Canadian. And it was a Canadian production company with Canadian, director, Canadian theater, and all of it was done by Americans, because Canada prefers to pay for Americans to come do our shows than to pay for Canadians to do our shows. And so it's disheartening, because as a Canadian, you're either going to make no money as an actor, or you're going to have to move to the States and become an actor there. The common conversation I had when I would tell people I was going to be an actor when I was younger was, oh, so when are you going to move to Hollywood? Oh, when are you going to move to New York? Because everybody knew you don't make it as an actor in Canada. And the Canadian actors who make it anywhere don't live as well as the American actors who barely make it. Like, you have B-level actors in the States that live better lives than the top Canadian actors in Canada. And so it's sad to see that. And so most of us don't aspire to be Canadian actors. We aspire to be American actors who are from Canada. Nick Cordero, for those in Europe, it probably wasn't news for you, but here it was all over TV that Nick Cordero was a Broadway star who was one of the first notable people to die from COVID. And he was on a Broadway show called Bullets Over Broadway. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. He did a bunch of shows with Zach Braff, the guy from Scrubs. He did a bunch of shows with him. He had done a few TV shows, and he was actually in the process. I don't know if they had started filming already or they had just cast him and he was about to start. He was going to be in a mafia movie. He was making waves. He was going to do a lot. And he's a family friend of mine. His dad was in my band. I knew Nick. Nick and I weren't close, but I knew Nick. And his dad came to all of my shows. His dad always, supported me through everything. And Nick and I were close. And not Nick's dad and I were close. And Nick came down one time, and that was one of the conversations we had, where he said to me, I had just graduated theater school at that point, and he's like, look, you started old. He goes, because I started really acting at about 18. He's like, you started old. He goes, so you're never going to be, big time. He's like, so don't be disheartened if you don't get there. He goes, but if you want to make it as an actor, he goes, my advice to you is move to the States. He goes, and move now, because the older you get, the harder it's going to be and the less chance you'll have. He goes, and then when you move to the States, he goes, you're going to eat shit, you're going to starve, and you're going to have to just walk into audition rooms. Don't even apply for them, because nobody knows who you are. Just walk in and say, you are so good, they need to see you. He goes, and then they'll see you, and then prove yourself, because that's the only way you're going to get anywhere. And for a guy who was, on his way, even he was like, that's the only way you're going to make it. Go to the States, because Canada does not care about his artists here. They don't care. Our Broadway is a place called Stratford, which is like a little tiny town. They don't have a lot going on there outside of the Stratford Theatre Festival. And there's the Stratford Festival, there's the Shaw Festival, and then there's Mirvish, which is like, that's more of the Broadway, because they put on the big musicals of like, Wicked and all that kind of stuff. But Mirvish almost exclusively hires American actors, and any Canadian actors they hire are only, side actors or small bits. Shaw Festival does a lot of contemporary stuff for Bernard Shaw, which is a lot of wordy, old-fashioned plays, so not exactly, cutting-edge stuff. That's in my town, actually. And and they're very particular about who they take. And then Stratford does a variety of stuff. They do Shakespeare, they do contemporary stuff, they do regular plays, they do musicals, and that's kind of where you want to go. If you can make it to Stratford, you've made it as an actor. And the thing with Stratford is they have secret auditions. They don't openly audition for people, so you have to have an agent to let you in. And then when you audition, you don't actually audition for the play. At least this is what it was like when I was, trying to be professional. You don't audition for the play. You auditioned for their training seminar. And then they hired, depending on how big the cast was, they would hire about 2 to 3 times more people for the seminar. And then it would be like theater school. You would train. Okay. Alana just messaged me telling me she's done. She didn't message me telling me she was getting ready. So you would train with them, and then as you go through the seminar, they kick people out. Once they get rid of everybody who's not going to make the training, then you train, and then you start off as like a nobody. You're masked guy number 2 on stage, and they make you sign a non-disclosure agreement where you can't say who you are and what show you're in and that you're working for them until the contract is up. I had a couple of friends make it through to that, and then they never went past that. But it's like there's a whole bunch of rules to even get in with them. So it's like even the one place where you can make it as an actor in Canada, they don't let you just do it. And so it's super, super hard to get in. And once you're in, I think the average income when I was in school, this was years ago now, was like $120,000 a year. For a full-time, top of their game actor, $120,000 a year is nothing. When you can go to Broadway and make that in one season and you're good. Or you can do one Hollywood movie and make, $600,000 in one movie. So it's like, it's nowhere near comparable. And then there's no productions for us here. Any Canadian movies barely get any screen time or anything. And then obviously the government uses that to kind of fight against each other, because we just passed a law where we have a law in Canada where a certain percentage of our content has to be Canadian, and there's certain rules for something to be Canadian. It can't just be, a Canadian guy's in it, it's Canadian content. It can't even be that a Canadian company made it and now it's Canadian. It has to be like funded by Canadian, starring a Canadian, ran by Canadians, and like 2 of the 3 have to be that way, and then one of them can be different. So like you could star an American but funded by Canadians, made by a Canadian company, or it could be made by Americans but funded by Canadians, starring Canadian actors. Like it's very, very specific. And then the government was trying to use that to fearmonger about this new rule. They were going to control what we saw in the media and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, it's just trying to give actors a chance to actually have content out there. Because if we just do everything that Americans want, then there is zero reason for us to do any art here. Because if I'm not going to be seen anyway, I'm just going to go to the States. But at least if there's some forced content that's Canadian, then I have a chance to be on some stage doing something. It's ridiculous. And Canada just really doesn't care. And the thing is, we have very talented actors here. We have very skilled actors here. And that's why a lot of Canadian actors do very well in the States, because our training is very different than what it is there. Like in the theater world, there's... what is it? I don't remember what the school is called. There's one school in England which is like renowned as one of the best theater schools you could possibly go to. And then there's like Juilliard, which does acting and stuff. But Canada just overall has a very high standard for acting. So we have a lot of very skilled actors, but not everybody can just move to the States to work. And not everybody has the money to do stuff like that. And so it's very hard for us to even get our foot in the door to try to do anything. And so when our own country doesn't even do it, how are we ever going to do anything? It really sucks. It really, really sucks. That's why I do like the content creation thing, because we can make our own content. Most of my friends who continue to act to this day are doing their own stuff. They don't actually work for any other company because it's just so demanding. And sadly, Preston is one of the guys that pops into the chat. He's a professional actor and he's made it, but he's skilled, he's hardworking, he's got the look, he's got the talent. But even he's noticing now that there's a push for minorities to be hired on. And so like right now would be my time to try applying for stuff. But I can't. I have a family and stuff. I can't. There's nothing out there for me. There's just not enough options out there, which really sucks because a lot of stuff is filmed here. Last of Us was done in Canada. There was another show that was done in Canada recently, but there's like a lot of really big shows are done in Canada, but it's done with American funding because Canada just refuses to do anything, and it really sucks. But that's life. Yeah, Keanu Reeves is another one that's Canadian. There's a lot of people out there that have Canadian ties, and what's his name? Mike Myers is Canadian, and him and Martin Short and Jim Carrey were all within like 20 minutes of where I lived. Actually, Jim Carrey went to the school down the street from me. Obviously, we're different generations, not even close to each other. But like, there's artists out there. There's nowhere to shine. There's nowhere for us to actually make an impact because there's no support, right? There's so few roles that we all fight for the same role. So very few of us actually get anywhere because there's just no opportunities. It really, really sucks. But yeah, anyways, I gotta go because Alana didn't warn me that she was finishing and she just messaged me saying she's done. So she's actually waiting for me outside. So I gotta get going. I gotta go pick her up from work. Anyways, I'll be back tomorrow. I will not be having an adult beverage, so hopefully I will be a little less chatty. We'll continue with some Elden Ring. I don't know what time. Hopefully I'll be up early enough so I can do it during my regular time. And we'll do some Elden Ring and play and have some fun. Just hang out. And yeah, I gotta write some scripts. I haven't recorded any like good TikToks in a while. I haven't had any motivation. After finding out stupid TikTok was like manually heating up videos and then on purpose stopping videos, after hearing that, I started noticing certain patterns. I did that one video about the kids talking about video games and it got like 250,000 views. And then like 2 days later, I did the exact same format with the exact same style, same quality, and just did a slightly different joke. And then it barely broke like 10,000 views. And it's like, how is there such a discrepancy between two very, very similar pieces of content? Yet I've got this girl that keeps popping up on my For You page who is not doing anything interesting, nothing against her at all, but like not doing anything interesting, yet she is living on my For You page and I don't follow her. I've never liked any of her stuff. I've never commented on any of her stuff. I don't even watch her videos. As soon as I see her face, I swipe and she's all over my For You page. I'm not saying that I deserve to be there more. I'm just saying like it shows that it's very much a stilted platform, and it really sucks because sometimes it kills your motivation. And I was feeling really motivated. I was doing a lot of really high quality videos. And then when I saw that, I was like, what's the point? If it's literally just on the whim, if it's going to blow up, I'm just going to do it whenever I feel like it. I'm not going to even try to stick to a schedule, because for a while there, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be kind of hit and miss. And then I was like, no, I'm going to stick to once a day, just to at least keep that momentum. And it did nothing. So what's the point of killing myself for nothing, right? Me too, Night Owl. I like chatting. It's just, there's a lot of people that don't know me and they pop in and they leave because I'm just sitting here talking most of the time. So I want to try to like see what happens if I play more and talk less and see if maybe that'll bring up the numbers. We'll see. But yeah, it's just hard when it's not, I don't expect them to tell me how the algorithm works, but it would be nice if the algorithm was evenly distributed everywhere. Right? Because I'll have videos that will do very, very well. Everybody's hitting the like everybody as in a very high percentage. Like it'll have like 400 views, but it'll be like 200 likes, which is fairly high. And it'll have like 20 comments. So it's like, there's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of liking. I've got like 10 people that have saved it or added to their favorites. And then the video just dies. And then I have a video that has no comments, no likes. And then all of a sudden it's got 10,000 views. And it's like, why? When this other video did so much better as far as interactions and all that, and this one didn't do well and it's blowing up. Just give it an even system so at least we all stood a chance to get views. It really sucks. Yeah, some consistency, any consistency, just something that we can at least see the outcome of our work. Because I'll do videos where I do nothing and it does amazing. Or I do videos where I'm like, this is so gonna go viral because it's like, it's funny, it's quick, it's in a trend, and then nothing. And then I'll do one that it's like, it's a lot of work, I busted my butt to do it, and nothing. And I'm just like, why am I going to kill myself for content that I don't get paid for, and then nobody is going to see it anyway? It really sucks. It just sucks. But what can you do? I'm just going to keep making content just because I like making content. It's just nice putting my face out there and doing stuff. Anyway, I better get out of here. Thank you so much all for being here. I really appreciate it. Let me stop TikTok before I stop YouTube. TikTok, thank you so much for being here. I'll see you soon, and I'll be live tomorrow. See you later. Okay. Twitch. Anybody who is on YouTube. I can't see who's where, but yeah, I'll be live tomorrow. We'll continue with some Elden Ring. I don't know what time, but hopefully at some point. And then next week it's going to be different days because of the change in schedule. But thank you all for chatting with me. Thank you for listening to me talk for 5 million years. And hopefully in a few weeks, this will be different. I'm getting a replacement set because 1, this is a little bit too thick, and 2, I ripped this one. So I'm getting a replacement set. It's supposed to be here Monday, but I got an email from FedEx saying that it's been delayed. So who knows how long. But hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll have an updated system that'll look a little bit more matchy. On camera, it's not as easy to tell because of the contrast levels that I use, but the hair is just slightly darker than my hair. So this new one's a little bit lighter and a little bit thinner just to match the density. This was my density in real life when I was younger, but now I'm older and the rest of it isn't as thick. So it just stands out that this is so thick and this isn't. So just a little bit thinner so it matches a bit better. Anyways, I'm getting out of here. I gotta go. Alana's sitting out there waiting for me. Have a good night, Night Owl. I'm enjoying your videos, man. Don't stop them because they're always so interesting. Whatever you touch, I love watching. All right, we win. Everybody else who's there, thank you so much for being here. Have a good night. Take care.